right. The button has been pressed. I think I see a green light on YouTube. The light is green on YouTube. All right, so CoCoTALK episode 77 is gonna do it live in 3, 2. This is CoCoTALK, the world's leading live talk show featuring the Tandy Color Computer. Streaming live on YouTube and Roku, available as a podcast and enjoyed the world over. And now, here's your host. Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to CoCoTALK episode 77, is it already? We've reached the twilight years in episodes at this point now. We are now 77 episodes old. And in case you're not aware of this, welcome to the soundboard that doesn't work talk. Welcome to CoCoTALK episode 7, the show that we like to call Train Wreck Talk. All right, so Salvador Garcia is here from the Color Computer Club. We got all kinds of people here, and we got a jam-packed show for you. We're going to accelerate getting into the show here. We're going to jump into our primary assembly segment sooner rather than later. But very quickly, let's acknowledge who is on the panel with us right now. From Canada, our Hispanic friend, L. Curtis Boyle is here.
Hello, everyone. And actually, I'm the reason the assembly thing's going early because I got to leave early. So my apologies to everybody involved.
Yeah, his nickname today is Diva. All right. And
our
resident Apple guy, Mark D. Overholzer is here. Hello, Mark.
Howdy. Glad to be here.
We're glad to have you. From sunny Arizona, the timber man himself, Ron Delvo. Ho, ho. And you're muted, Ron. You're still muted. keep pressing the buttons till you find the right one. You're still muted. There you go. Ron, try it again.
Hey,
how are you, Ron? How you doing?
Pretty good.
Rob Inman. Rob Inman says,
backgrounds.
Yeah, L. Diva Boyle. Yes.
I wanted to keep quiet.
From down under the thunder, Mr. Nicholas Morentes is with us. Good eye, Nick.
Good eye, everyone.
Good eye. We have Jason, the Coco Man Reichert, maker of the Switcheroo, wearing a CoCoTALK t-shirt. Hello, Jason.
Hey, everybody. Blame Canada.
Hello. And last but certainly not least, creator of Z89, Steve Bjork is with us.
Hey there, folks.
Hey.
Of course, we pronounce it Z89. But
Z89.
Actually, coming from a little cloudy, we actually had something unusual. For 15 minutes, it rained.
Woo-hoo.
We haven't seen that since May, if not April.
Wow.
We have not had a drop of rain since then. And I think our friends in Arizona also got a little bit of a downpour, too.
Yeah.
But it evaporated before it hit the ground, so it was a steam shower, right?
Oh, yeah.
It wasn't that white fluffy rain like we had up here a week ago, is it?
No.
Well, they started doing their weather watch or first storm 19 or whatever. They were doing their weather watches on the channels and like that. And we got maybe like a drop or two most of the day. And all of a sudden at 10:30, it just let loose. I kind of go, what the hell's going on outside? I look outside and it was just like coming down in buckets. I'm going, this never happens.
Well, it happens every 5 minutes in Florida somewhere. So
yeah. Yeah. Florida, you can set your watch to it.
Yes. Let's say hi to some people in the live chat. So Mark Overholzer in the live chat. Chad Edward Cunnington is here. Nick's neighbor, another fellow Aussie. Tim Franklin is here. And Davey Mitchell is here. So is Al Hartman. Hello, Al Hartman. Mark Overholzer. Alexander Wallace is here. Hunter LTU is here. Rob Inman says, do it live. Is here. Eric Canales, potential president of the Glenside Computer Club. Eric Canales is with us. Tim Franklin, Mark Overholzer, Salvador Garcia of the Glenside Color Computer Club. Hello, Salvador. Hola, ¿cómo está? Salvador also says, hello, Mark and Chad. Rob Inman is here. Nick Marotta. Everybody say hi, Nick Marotta.
Hi, Nick Marotta.
All right, Nick Marotta's here. Chad Cunningham is here. He's your neighbor, L-O-U-R. He's your neighbor. We've just been joined by L. David Ladd. Hello, David.
Why, hello, everyone.
All right, everybody. Well, we're going to keep the introduction short and sweet for now. We'll play How's Your Week Been later. We can do our show and tell in a little bit. But what we're going to do is we're going to jump right into our main segment today because L. Diva Boyle has things to do today. So we're going to...
Thank you very much.
We're going to jump in. And so last week we finished Assembly Language Part 8. I believe that was an unsigned number and no arithmetic shifts happened. However, we're going to do an Inc. A right now, and we're going to increment to Part 9, right?
Yep, exactly.
Okay, so we're going to increment this episode to Part 9. Tom C. has just joined us from Jersey. He's Al Hartman's neighbor. All right, so we're incrementing the episode to Assembly Language Part 9. Hosted by the author of Clowns and Balloons himself, Mr. Steve Bjork. And I would also just like to say, look at that, we got Clowns and Balloons on the screen in living color.
Now I'm just gonna slightly correct you on that. James Guerin got credit for Clowns and Balloons. See, he was a programmer that assisted me there at Datasoft, and Datasoft had this weird policy. Only one person can be listed for a product.
Wow.
And so I felt sorry for him after several products that he wasn't listed on. So I gave him Clowns and Balloons and also Shooting Gallery.
Okay.
So even though they were basically my games, I said he's got to get some credit because if this gig at Datasoft ever goes south, he's got to have some credits here.
Sure. Well, that was...
Are we going to have the DEFCON thing up during this?
I don't think there's a need for that.
Yeah, we know he's going to lose it this time.
Well, some of us have other thoughts on that.
So what I'll do is I'll just zoom in like this, and you can look at the veins in my temples here, and if they start throbbing, like the guy in Star Trek, those big Brainiac throbbing vein head guys, if I start looking like that, then...
Well, the question is, well, see, I kind of wanted the DEFCON thing, so that I know that if I'm getting too technicals or too many acronyms or something like that, I know I got to back off.
Yeah, and then that's at which point I pile on. But
yeah, exactly.
Where's James? Where's James different after when we need him? We can have the trifecta of tech battle here. My head will
early alerts.
We'll have to text you guys alerts there when Steve.
I need to wear one of these medical bracelets here saying that my head explodes during techno babble. I'm allergic to it.
You think we can get a presidential tweet to everybody to let them know when?
Yes.
Well, let's see. Why don't we go ahead and get that slide up there for everybody to see? This is a little different than what we've done in the past. We've been talking about instructions, all the lovely instructions in the 6809. And by the way, we're still not done. There's a few leftover instructions we haven't covered. But by golly, we've got to now talk about addressing modes. Addressing modes is the real power, the thing that turns the 6809 into a superhero. It really is what makes the 6809 shine compared to the other 8/16-bit processors back in the day. And why don't we go to the first slide? Basically, what an addressing mode is the way the 6809 is going to address its information, the way it's going to go and grab it. And that's one of the beauties of the 6809. There is a multitude of ways to do it. I've always said with the 6809, it's never trying to figure out some way to get the 6809 to do the way to do something you want to do. It's just trying to find one the better ways to do it. It doesn't fight you. And that was the beauty. And that's what I really loved about coding on this processor. It's like, oh, we could do it this way, or we could get that information that way, or we could go around this way. So it's actually kind of good for a beginnings programmer to actually use the 6809 because you don't have to work so hard like the 6502. You have to use tricks like let's say you go through and you want to address something quickly, or you want to be able to have some flexibility in the way you do addressing, you have to use self-modifying code. There's just no way around it on that processor.
I will add, I actually took a machine language course in university for second year, and the course book we had, the two main processors they concentrated on was the 68809 and then the 68000, because they were showing you the difference between the 8 and the 16 bits, and that was the two they chose as the basis for teaching. And I think they had a PDP-11 in there too, because the 689 has some cousin relationships with it as far as addressing modes go.
And that's the thing, is the 6809 was being developed essentially at the same time as the 68000. So they were putting a lot of the effort of this newer, more powerful 68,000 chip. They're going, well, we've kind of learned it for a few things. Let's put on the 6809 too. So when I moved over to doing stuff on the Sega Genesis, it was a breeze to go from 6809 to 68,000. And of course, it was a true 16/32-bit processor that really allowed you to get a lot of work done. But we're here to talk about the 6809 and like that. And as I put down here as a reference at the bottom, hold on, Stevie, this is going to be a bumpy ride.
Okay.
Yeah. All righty. We've talked about some of these addressing modes in our past seminars. Some of them are very straightforward. In the case of the increment A, that's the INCA, the register A is the addressing mode here. Basically, this is, it's kind of built into the instruction. It says, whatever we're going to work at, we're going to be working on the A register. In the case of the Inc A, it adds 1 to A. And some of the other ones are Inc B, decrement A, decrement B, clear A, clear B, complement A, complement B. As I said, what it works on is in the instruction. These are typically 1-byte instructions. They run very quick. And that's one of the reasons why you see them a lot in the programs, is they're useful, they're quick, they're fast, they get the job done. But this addressing mode that's called inherent basically means that we're addressing something that is inherent in the way the instruction is named. Pretty simple, pretty straightforward. We're keeping Stevie here at DEFCON 1, I can see.
I'm good. I'm fine.
Yeah. Okay. Immediate addressing means that the address is part of the instruction.
Is that supposed to switch lines? Okay, switch lines.
Yep.
Yeah.
Let's switch slides. Okay.
Okay.
The instruction actually holds the data to be used. It's inside there. A good example of this is add to A the number 16. It's a 2-byte instruction. The first byte is the actual command of add to A, and the second byte holds the number 16. So we're basically saying that the information in this addressing mode is immediate. It is part of the instruction. It's very quick, and it's also used quite a bit too throughout the 6809. So if you want to add a number to D, or you want to load a number into the X register, these are all immediate. It's part of the instruction. And if you're not doing self-modifying code, it never changes.
Now, because the A register is an 8-bit register, it's automatically going to assume whatever you're feeding into it's not bigger than 8 bits, so you don't have to worry about an overflow or a state or anything else like that, right?
Well, you don't have to worry about the fact that you're trying to add a 16-bit number. In other words, a word, 2 bytes, to a 8-bit number. Now, there's also the add to D, which is a 16-bit, and it'll actually grab both of those bytes from within the instruction. So, and basically, it just means that the information is part of the instruction.
Okay.
Very quick, very fast. It's not going to have to look somewhere else in memory to find it. It's right there. So it's immediate. It kind of sounds like its name.
Yep.
All right. If we're good on that, let's move to the next slide.
Yep.
Extended addressing is where inside the instruction is the 16-bit pointer. And remember, with 16 bits, which is 2 bytes or a word, you can point to any place that the 6809 can reference. And they call this extended addressing, because within the instruction, we have 2 bytes. They're referring to where we're going to find the information in the full 64K of memory. And let's see, an example of this is load A with $FF02. This means load up A with the contents that is at hexadecimal FF02. So it basically loads A with the data that is at this IO port. In the CoCo, for example, FF02 is an IO port. It talks to information outside the computer through this little chip, and that gets put into the A register. Doing okay there, Stevie?
Yep.
Yep. Not too many acronyms there.
Nope.
But let's stay on that slide, though.
Okay.
A couple more things. Just want to really emphasize the address to talk to this memory, to figure out where the memory location is definitely inside the instruction again. Before, the information that was inside the instruction was the physical data. Here, the difference is this is the address of the physical data.
So it's actually got to do a lookup on what's in that location to load it into there.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's a little slower because it has to figure out the address, go look for it in memory, and come back with the data.
It's basically like saying doing a peek from this location and then.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
In the case of a load, yes. Yep.
And of course, one of the nice things about this is you're not having to waste a register to point to this location. It's just part of the instruction. There are times that you're going to want to have a register point to someplace, but this makes it very quick to load up something that's sitting in memory without having to waste a register. And registers, while we do have a few on the 6809, it's not like the 68,000 where we got 16 of them. It's just, we don't have a lot of registers to waste.
Okay.
So that's really why this extended addressing, and it's pretty common in most processors to have this extended addressing mode where the location that you want to grab the data is sitting as part of the instruction. Let's go to the next slide now.
I'll just add to the load A example we've got here where it's getting, whatever stored at memory location FF02 is the equivalent of a peek. If you're doing a store to a memory location, it's the equivalent of a poke.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
So if that was an STA, that would be store A?
Yep. Exactly.
Whatever's an A gets stored at whatever memory location you tell it to.
All right. Now, one thing about doing this is you have to have within the instruction 2 bytes that talk about the address of what we're doing with the extended addressing. And that can make the program a little larger. It can make it slightly slower. As I said, it's got to load up the entire address from the actual instruction. So it always makes the instruction 2 bytes longer. Well, when they were developing the 6800 and the folks that did the 6502, they liked the idea. Something was developed called direct addressing. It's basically a shorthanded version of extended addressing. Now, in the earlier processors, it would simply say, direct addressing, you've got a 16-bit address. The top half of that 16-bit address is always going to be 0. And within the instruction, we're going to carry the lower 8 bits of the address. So it only makes the instruction 1 byte longer. And since it doesn't have to do that load of the upper byte, it knows it's going to be 0. Hey, that means it'll be a little quicker.
And shorter.
And shorter. So this actually makes the program shorter and run a little faster. Now, the guys that developed the 6809 said, hey, let's make it more flexible and call it direct page and include a register that will hold what those upper 8 bits are, the upper half of the instruction. So you can literally move your direct page anywhere in memory as long as you're doing it in steps of 256 bytes. Every 256 bytes, you can have a new direct page just by loading up the register.
I will mention the 6502. Actually, if I remember correctly, they referenced it as 0 page because literally you could only have it at 0. So and then direct page with the 609 having the DP register, the direct page register that points to the upper, was so much more flexible because now you could move it to wherever you needed some speed and space savings. OS 9 uses it extensively for your loading different processes because everybody gets their own direct page. It doesn't interfere with each other's. If you only had one 0 page, every process or thread or whatever would have to keep track of exactly who's doing what, so I don't overwrite something somebody else did.
Yeah, it really made this processor be flexible. It made it a multi-user, multitasking operating system. But the real emphasis here is this is a way to create a shorthand. At the beginning of your program, you set the direct page to where you want your direct page variables, where you want these shorthand variables to be at. Most programmers just set the direct page to 0 and just use the first 256 bytes for the direct page. But as I said, you have the option to move it anywhere. And if we go to the next slide, we'll see an example where if we had set direct page to 1, instead of in our example, which was looking at memory location 71, is now going to look at memory location 171X because it's getting that 1 from the direct page register and the 71 is from the program. So the main emphasis here is direct page, or what was called 0 page processing, is a way to do a shorthand to talk to just 256 bytes of RAM and get in there quick and like that. So a lot of important variables in your program get stored in direct page, things that you're going to constantly access all the time. So like if you wanted to have the count of number of lives, which we know we have to basically extend for Stevie lots of time, we would store the current life count in direct page. It makes it fast, it makes it quick for accessing. All the different parts of the program can access it. It's a convenient way to get your important variables down.
Yeah, and in Steve's case, we would put the level number he's on in extended page because it's slower and it doesn't get accessed as much because he never gets past level 2. So I want to mention one other thing too, just a real life example. The patches I've been doing to rescue on Fractals, which I've got about running 10 to 20% faster now. There's chunks of the program that do the calculations for the 3D terrain mapping, and then there's calculations that actually do the drawing of the 3D mapping, which is a multi-layered thing as it builds out from the back of the screen, like as far back into the screen as you can go up to your right in front of you. And one of the patches I did that did speed it up is that those chunks are done separately. So it does all this math calculation for fractals. It takes a huge amount of code, and then it's got a whole bunch for the drawing. And I just changed the direct page between those two. So I think it was 5 and 7 in that particular case, where all the calculations for the one type are in 5 and all the calculations for the other type are in 7. So I managed to shorten the code and speed it up just doing that.
Mm-hmm. So how are we doing with direct page here for you, Stevie?
I'm fine right now.
Okay. So think of it as a shorthand or quickie way to get to variables. Mm-hmm. Don't have a lot of them, but the important ones you'll want to put there to make your program run faster.
Good.
Okay. Well, let's go to the next slide. All right. This is where it starts getting a little bumpy because it is the superpower of the 6809. Index addressing. And at this point, we're going to spend almost all of the rest of the session here on index addressing. As you know, there are 4 main index registers, the X, Y, S, which is the stack pointer, and the U, which is the user stack pointer. The program counter can also be used as an index register in some of the types we're going to talk about in a few minutes. But the main ones we're talking about here are X, Y, S, and U. They're all 16-bit, so they can all point to anywhere in the 64K of the CoCo's memory. And indexing, like you would think about your index cards, you go through and you got a whole bunch of cards, and where you're looking at in those cards, that's your index point. That's the point you're at. But the thing is, the 1609 lets you say, hey, I can go forward 3 cards, or I can go back 5 cards. And the interesting way it works is that you're able to kind of like keep that pointer, like you have your index finger inside the card stuff, so you don't forget that point, and you can just move back 3 cards and look at something there. And when you're done looking at it, you still got your finger pointing in that index card list, so you know where you're at. So
Okay.
This is where we're going to get into the stuff is that's it. Think about index cards, your finger in the middle of the index where you want to make your reference, and how you can go backwards and forwards.
Okay.
So that's what we're going to be doing. Let's go to the next slide.
Well, I think last week the stock in buffets and especially Golden Corral went up, talking about the plate analogy. So now hopefully the index card industry will take a little spike now after this one.
Dewey Decimal cards are back.
Yes. Yes, they are. There are definitely many ways to use the index registers. Since these registers are all 16-bit, I was kind of covering that a little bit with the analogy of the card index. They can point to anywhere. And as I say, this is the true power of the 1609, is because there's many options to use them. And this is where the power comes in, where I keep saying it's not, the 1609 is not trying to find a way to do something. It's finding the best way to do something. And don't worry too much about it. The way you're doing it when you're first coding is the best way. You'll learn as you're going through what is the best way. Right now, we just want to get it done without a problem, without bugs.
Yeah. As a beginning programmer, the best way to do indexing is whatever's easiest for you to understand and keep track of.
Right.
Later on, you can worry about optimizing for speed and size and a bunch of other things when you start learning some of the tricks, but they're definitely more complicated to keep track of. So if we don't want you to DEFCON 5 right off the bat here, we want to keep it on the KISS principle, I guess.
Exactly. And when we get down to one of the later slides, that's when we're definitely going up one DEFCON level for sure. So it'll be good to know, but don't have to necessarily try and use it right away. Let's go to the next slide. Well, in that card analogy that I used, basically referencing to where your finger is sticking in that stack of cards, that list of cards, that's the easiest way to refer to something, is where you're already at. And that's basically offset 0. This basically means where the index register is pointing. That's where you're going to get your information. And let's see. Basically, that can be referred to as a load A with 0, X, or it could be just simply load A with comma X. If you don't have anything before the comma, the default is it's 0. It means where X is pointing. Now, the index off the 0 offset off the register is very quick, because the instruction knows you're not adding anything to it. You just want to point there. And so it only really adds 1 byte to the instruction, just telling it we're index 0. All addressing modes have at least 1 byte added to them. You got the instruction, and then you got the thing that says the type of index you're doing. Remember before with direct page, you had the instruction, then you had which one of the direct page memory locations you're going to, and that was 1 byte. There's 1 byte that says we're doing this type of instruction. It's very fast, very quick. When a programmer can use it, they like to use it a lot, right, Curtis?
Oh, yeah.
It's just like when you're in that index card, you got your finger in the slot. It's very easy to look right there and see it. 1609 likes it like that. Let's go to the next slide. The next one has to do with a constant offset. This is where, remember I talked about, you keep your finger pointed at one spot in all that list of cards, but you want to go 3 backwards. This is where it comes in, or 4 backwards, or 4 ahead. That information about how far to move back, how far to go forward. That's included inside the instruction. It does not change unless you do self-modifying code. So it allows you to simply keep a finger, which is the, let's say in this case, the X register, keep in the same location, move forward 4 cards. That's what the load A 4, X is. Load A at the 4th card down, and you get the information. And of course, the beauty is your finger is still in that card stack. It hasn't moved. In other words, the X register hasn't been changed or updated. It stays the same. So it allows you to sit there and grab something from memory, but 4 bytes later, or 100 bytes later, or 1,000 bytes before, just depending on how you want to get the information out of there. An example that we might use something 32 bytes later on a CoCo Model 1-2 screen that is developed, it's got 32 bytes of memory per scan line. So if you want to look at something exactly 1 scan line down, you would say 32, X, 32 bytes later than where X is pointing. So you could see this gets used quite a bit for graphic modes and stuff like that.
I'll throw in one other example, more to Steve's gaming persona. Let's say X is pointing to a block of data describing an alien ship or something like that. You might have 0, X is the alien's X position on the screen. 1, X might be the alien's Y position on the screen. 2, X might be what kind of an alien you're drawing, like you did in your game Cosmic Aliens, where you have multiple aliens. So basically, you would load X point to whatever alien you're currently working on. So if you have 5 of them, you would have 5 different locations that you could load an X, and then you'd have these little offsets within the kind of these tables. And I know Steve's going to get more into this with the object-oriented stuff later, but basically you can use that just to constantly reference, and then you don't have to figure out, alien 1 is stored here and alien 2 is stored here, and I got to do the multiplications to figure out whereabouts this information will be. You just point to the start of each one, and then these constant offsets, you can just grab those variables right straight off. Hopefully it's not confusing for you, Stevie.
Yeah.
Okay.
And we'll definitely get in that, because object-oriented coding allows you to have the same code work on different guys. And you could have like 3 balls bouncing on the screen, and the only thing different between the 3 different balls bouncing on the screen is their data. They don't have to, because if you had hard-coded, that's the term we use, hard-coded their information in direct page, you would have a different routine for each one of those balls, because they would be looking at a different place in direct page to find that information. So it'll be a technique that I definitely will be teaching everybody early on in the assembly language course, that goes for writing more efficient code, less buggy code, and just generally a more pleasurable way of doing things.
Much easier to keep track of stuff, yes.
Exactly. But still, you got the idea that this allows you to talk to, say, the 4th card down from where you're pointing inside that index list. Right, Stevie?
Yep.
Okay, so we're doing good. We still got you at DEF CON 5, right?
Yep.
Okay. Oh, I plan to change that later. And this is one point where we might shave a half a point off of that, bring you up slightly. Constant offset addressing mode has 3 different options, 3 different ways of doing it. And it all depends about how far away from where you're pointing in the index list do you want to go. Let's say that you just want to go back about 8 cards. That could be done very simply with the first type of offset. It has to do with a signed 4-bit offset, which allows you to go back 16 one way, -16, or a +15. The second way of doing it is a signed 7-bit offset, which allows you to go 128 backwards or negative, or 127 forward. So you can see we've got a pretty long card catalog here, where we can go more than 100 cards backwards and forwards. But let's say that's not enough. Let's say that you've got one of these ones you'd see in a comedy movie, where you pull out the card index and it's about I don't know, 30 or 40 feet long.
Mm-hmm.
It literally holds 64,000 cards. Well, where X is pointing, you can move backwards and forwards a negative 32,768 to a positive 32,767, which is a signed 16-bit offset. So you can move all the way through memory that you want. Now, why would you do 3 of these, and why would they be set up with these ranges?
Probably just for efficiency. If you don't need to go too far, why waste the processing time? Or
Exactly. Each one of these different modes adds an extra byte. As I said, all indexing operations require at least 1 byte to say what type of indexing it is. And then in the case of the one where we're looking at signed 7-bit mode, that adds an extra byte. And the last one adds 2 extra bytes to figure it out. So
they get slower the bigger you get too.
It gets slower because it's got to do more calculations and it's got to load the data. Now, here's something interesting. I kept on saying something about all the indexing modes are at least 1 byte in size. And one of the things that they figured out in the 6809 is we're going to have to do a lot of references close to where we're pointing. And they had just enough room when they're figuring out all the different addressing modes that they could put inside that byte that says what addressing mode we're doing. We could put 5 bits or in something that actually does a signed 4-bit operation to go negative 16 to a positive 15 within that byte. It was very complicated for them to do it. It was very hard to work out. We're thankful they did because it allows us this very special mode. So that's basically the different styles and why. You got it right on the nose. It has to do with efficiency. The first one's most efficient because we're not going to add anything to it to figure out this constant index off of it. The next one, we add just 1 byte. And in the case of the signed 16-bit, we add 2 bytes. So yeah, it's all about efficiency. Now, in the case that I give here, the load A with 32, X, gee, could that be the next scan line in the video buffer? Anyways, that would require 1 byte added to the instruction for the signed 7-bit offset. Where if we had said 4, X, it would have just been a single byte instead of 2 bytes there. Okay, how are we doing there, Stevie?
Bytes or bits? 32 is 4 bytes.
Well, no, I'm sorry. I confuse them back and forth. 32 would add 1 byte.
Yeah, it would fall into that second one, the negative 128 to positive 127 range, because that's beyond plus 15.
Right.
Yep. So it would add the 1 byte and slow it down slightly.
Yeah, you lose 1 CPU cycle on that one. I think you lose 2 to 3 or something on the 16-bit. I can't remember the exact offset, but
yeah, that's one thing to keep in mind when we start working sometimes with information that's 16 bits in size, 2 bytes. The CPU kind of has to do things twice a little bit, so it really slows it down. But still, we've got these efficiencies in here, and once again, these offsets to the X register, the Y register, do not change or affect
the register itself.
The register itself, yeah, it's still, you got your finger still in the card index pointing while you're looking somewhere else, and yet, it's still there. It's still pointing that location. So it's definitely a very powerful type of operation. It's used quite a bit in the 609 coding. As you can see, the 32X combo 4 definitely helps. Let's move to the next slide if we're doing okay there.
Mm-hmm.
Now, you can also do this type of operation where you have a constant offset with the program counter. And this is typically used to talk to, like, hey, I want to load up the address of a data table, or I want to make reference of some information somewhere else. But that information is kind of part of the program. It makes it so that I can point to it, and it's what we call PC relative, program counter relative. It makes sure that if I move the program and I can move the data with it, it will know where the data is. But it's a way to reference information. But when they did this particular mode, there is no smaller -16 to +15 offset. It's just strictly the 7-bit offset and the 15-bit offset, the signed offsets.
Okay, looking at a byte or a word there for this.
Yeah,
exactly. So you can't get as efficient as what the index registers allow for, but at least you still have this option where you can index off the PC register. And there are some handy times for that. But just making everybody aware of this mode exists, and we will be using it in much later lessons. Next slide. Sometimes when we go through and we put the finger in, we might have to do a calculation to figure out where we want to offset from. And of course, we know that the A and B registers can be used for 8-bit calculations, and the D register can be used for 16-bit calculations. A good example for this is, let's say that you want to talk to the 20th line, or no, let's just say the 10th line of video memory. Well, you would use the A, B, and D registers the following. You would load up A with the fact that you are the number 10, the 10th line, or whatever you're referring to. The B register would load up with the number of bytes
per line.
And you could use the multiply command that would multiply A and B together, and you would now be looking at the number 320 in the D registers. Remember, the D register is the A and B register put together to make a total of 16 bits. And we can use that as an offset. So if you sit there and say load A with D, X, you would now be loading information off the 10th line. So you can see we can do calculations to figure out where we want to offset to. And that's what this particular type of indexing is all about. Now remember, this indexing is either assigned 7-bit or assigned 15-bit. In other words, it can go negative or positive.
Okay. So
and if you need to refer back to it in one of the previous lessons, we talked about math and how the sign works and like that. Okay. Doing okay there?
Yep.
All right. Next slidey. All right. Sometimes if you're pointing somewhere in that card index, it would be nice to be able to automatically move the pointer when we looked at the card. Let's say you look at the card and you say, nope, that's not the book I want. You take your index pointing finger and you move it to the next card. And that allows you to remind that the next time you're looking at that index card list, that you're now looking at this one instead of the previous one. This is typical if you wanted to write a bunch of information to graphics memory, because you're going to be moving along. You write information to the memory location, and then you want to move the pointer to the next one. So the next time you go through that loop, that next instruction, whatever, the X is now pointing to the next location that you want to talk to. And that's where we come into auto increment and auto decrement. Remember increment A, where we add one? Mm-hmm. Well, that's the thing is, in processors, we do a lot of just adding ones to things. So we have an auto increment, auto decrement. For the most part, it's adding 1 to the index register. And yes, Curtis, I will cover the exception.
Okay. I was also going to mention, like, an excellent example of this is just clear the screen. If you want to clear the text screen with 0, you would do store A, you'd load A with 0 first, and then you do store A X plus after pointing X to the start of the screen. And then you just keep it in a loop and you check to see when you're done the screen. It would just keep incrementing X. So store A X plus, it would start at, say, 1024. The next time would be 1025. The next would be 1026. And you could basically poke the whole screen.
Well, see, the reason why they do this is one of the most common things that people do in other processors is that after they store the information somewhere, they then have an instruction that increments or adds 1 to that pointer. So the beauty of it is in one instruction, you do both. You do what most processors do in 2 instructions.
All right, so store is like a poke.
Yep, store is
so
like a poke.
This is basically saying poke x comma what's in value a, and then x equals x plus 1, but it's saying that all in one statement.
Exactly.
Yep. Exactly. That's all there's to it. It allows you to move. Now, this is the first instruction that actually changes the index register. See, all those other ones, we've left the finger pointing in that index card list and not moved it, even though we looked at things that were somewhere else. This one actually changes it and causes it to move forward by 1. Let's go to the next slide if we're doing okay.
Mm-hmm.
All right. What if you're trying to read or write a 16-bit number? That's 2 bytes. If you did something like store x y plus 1, it would only move the index register 1 byte. That doesn't work for 16-bit numbers where they're 2 bytes. So they have an auto increment that moves forward by 2 bytes. And you can see here we've got a store x y plus plus. That's how you tell the microprocessor not to move once, but move twice. Now I'm saying here that it's basically adding 2 to y. I made a mistake there. I put the x. That's supposed to be the y register. Something for me to correct on these slides. Anyways, you must use the right number of pluses when you're writing your code. A store A++ will store the data at every other byte of memory because it will increment twice. If you do a store A plus, it will work with writing to every byte of memory. So it's up to you as the programmer to decide and remember to use either increment once or increment twice based on the number of pluses. And by the way, the processor, the way it really does it is it writes 1 byte, increments, writes the second byte, and then increments again, essentially.
So it takes cycles. It takes cycles to do this.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Because you're writing 2 bytes, it takes 2 cycles, and like that. But the whole idea here was to make it so you don't have to use 2 instructions. You're combining them into one, and it makes it a little faster. And once you get used to it, easier to write code.
Yeah, and saves room too, because otherwise you have literally 2 instructions. You have to do store A, comma y, which takes a couple bytes, and then you have to do add 2. Yeah.
Yeah. So it speeds it up, makes the program shorter. Everybody's happy, and then we thank the designers of the 6809 for doing that. All right. As I said, in the case of like x plus and x2, it moves the pointer. But when does it? It does it afterwards. We call this post-auto increment. It means that it stores the information or reads the information or whatever it's going to do, then it moves the pointer. Well, we also have, as I said before, auto decrement. It works backwards. It does the decrementing before it reads or writes using the pointer. In other words, the pointer changes first by the decrement, and then it points to the location you're going to pull up the information. That makes sense, Stevie?
Yep. Now I'm going to try to preemptively assume, is there a double minus if you want to do 2 bytes?
Yep. There is 2. Yeah. There is 2 if you want to do 2. But
that's known as a double negative.
Yeah. Yep. And you would think that, then we'll increment. No. But the most important thing to say here is the fact that in the auto increment, it happens afterwards automatically. Basically, after the instruction, it is now pointing to the new location. In the case of the auto decrement, It's a pre-decrement. It happens before the register gets used. So it'll decrement and then do the read or write to memory. Then in case of a double decrement, it'll then decrement again and then use memory. So that's another reason why we put the minus sign before the index register. If we notice when
because that's telling you visually that it's happening first, where the plus at the end, it's showing you visually it's happening after.
And the assembler, if you do it wrong, it will actually error out. So it
Okay.
helps you catch this if and
Okay.
it triggers your brain to remember which way it's working.
Okay.
So, and much like the where we had the single and double pluses, you must remember to use the single or double pluses whether you're writing a byte at a time or a word at a time, which is 2 bytes. You got to remember that, or else when you start doing this stuff, you're going to get weird graphics on the screen or other weird effects in the program. But once again, you don't have to use this auto increment and auto decrement in the beginning. You can do it as 2 separate instructions if it makes it easier for you to program and understand your code.
Mm-hmm.
So,
or if you're coming from a 6502, and that's pretty well all you have.
Yeah. Or else you do self-modifying code. Let's put it this way: if you want to do anything in the 6502, you pretty much are writing self-modifying code. All right. If we're okay there, Stevie, I know this is one of the ones that can get a little bumpy.
No, so far so good.
All right.
Okay, I lost the bet so far. We'll see if Steve wins.
Yeah. Okay. Yes, and just to kind of reiterate everything we talked about here, the 2 types of auto decrementing are the single minus and the double minus that come in front of the X. And they're basically, if you got 2 of them, it is going to subtract 2, but they're done in 1 step at a time. And the reason why they did it this way, it mimics the way the stack works in the computer. Remember that pushing down plates and pulling things up that we talked about in a previous lesson? Well, that's the way the stack works is the way this auto incrementing works. It does the increment afterwards when you pull it off the stack, but when you're pushing it down, you're storing the information on the stack, it does the decrement first. So there is a reason why they do these differently, is just so that it can mimic the way the stack operations work too.
And in fact, you sometimes use these on the stack if you push some stuff in the stack and you only want
Kirk. We don't want to go to DEFCON 3. We do not want to go to DEFCON 3 here.
Darn.
Yeah.
Well, it might help somebody win a bet.
I already lost, so I don't know.
I've got this right here that's gonna send you for a loop unless I can explain it well. But not quite yet. Well, we're almost there. Remember in one of our previous lessons we talked about.
Am I advancing slides, or are you just still anecdote?
Next slide. All right. In the 6809, we've got one more indexing trip up the sleeve, and we kind of touched upon it already with the on X go to that we try to emulate from BASIC in the 6809. That was the jump with a bracket B comma X bracket. This told it to jump to to use the data in the jump that it found at B comma X. This is so you could have a bunch of tables that said where you go. This is known as extended indirect addressing, and it's available on virtually all the different addressing modes. So every addressing mode that we talked about here, you could sit there and say where the index where you got your finger in the index thing, and then if we skip forward and now we found the card that we're actually looking at, it had that Dewey decimal number on it, and it told you where, based on that Dewey decimal number, you could find it in the bookshelf. That's what extended indirect addressing. It allows you to sit there and say, I'm not actually pointing to the data. I'm actually pointing to where you will find, the information about where to find the data.
The pointer to the pointer.
Exactly. So we're going up one step in the meta.
Okay.
We're now looking at the information on the card that has the Dewey Decimal number that tells us where in the bookshelf to find the book.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And the indirect modes are always designated by those square brackets. So if you're using extended indirect or indexed indirect or any of these other ones here, the square brackets are what are telling you and telling the assembler that that's what you're trying to do.
Yeah, we're now saying what you're looking at isn't the final place. We're going to grab that information, and that information is going to tell us where in the hell to find that book. So, okay.
So it's a card that points to another card, and on that card is where we're going.
Right.
Yep.
Okay.
Now, the reason why we do this in the 6809 is so you don't have to waste time loading up another register with that data you would find at BCOMX, and then having to load up that data and going somewhere. So we're actually able to combine not only 2 instructions in one here, so we could get to that book, but the fact that we don't have to waste a register doing it. And
not to mention multiple instructions.
Multiple instruction. So it makes the code faster. It makes it simpler. You're not having to waste your limited number of index registers to find that location. So this is where the power of the 6809 really shines, is the ability to do this rather complicated. Have a pointer with a finger inside the card rex in card index, move to someplace relative to it to look up the card information, to find the Dewey Decimal number, to actually find the book on the shelf. And this helps a lot in a lot of the programming we're going to be doing later, but it's one of the keys. It's literally superpower. Now, Now, as I said before, there's a couple of addressing modes this does not work with, and that is when you do an auto increment or decrement by 1. And it makes sense. You're looking at 16 bits, 2 bytes of data. You don't want to increment by 1. You'd only go halfway through the address. So you have to use auto increment or decrement by 2. That's where we had the 2 plus signs or the 2 minus signs. So that is one restriction. Other than that, it's available. This indirect addressing is available on all the different index addressing modes. Yeah, it's available.
And the main reason for that, not allowing the single and single increment, single decrement, is because these are pointers to pointers, and a pointer is pointing to 64K. So you need 2 bytes to tell it where to go to find whatever data you're trying to look up. So having the single plus minus just would not make sense, because you would not be able to point to the actual location.
Yep. And if anybody remembers Dewey Decimal Systems, just like a 16-bit pointer, which is 2 bytes, which is kind of a long bit of information, so can that Dewey Decimal number be. I remember having to write it down many times trying to find the book.
I was just going to mention, if you remember Dewey Decimal, you're old, but okay.
Hey,
I do remember it. I do remember it, so I used it.
Hey, it was the only way to find something in the university. But, okay, so we doing here good, Stevie?
So far, so good. Nobody's winning a bet.
Okay. I didn't even get you to DEFCON 4, huh?
Nope. Next slide.
Yeah. The next slide, and I pretty much already covered that in what I was saying. You don't need to load up a register to look up the address for somewhere else using this extended indirect addressing. And it speeds up looking up data tables. Data tables are something we're going to definitely get into when we talk about using the 6809 as part of actual writing code and programs. But data tables are very important. And like that. Let's go to the next slide. One term that I've been avoiding using because Stevie doesn't like acronyms is effective addressing.
I just have an acronym per slide quota. No more than three. No more than three-letter acronyms per slide.
That's why you don't like David Ladd's slide. I got it now.
Okay. And this is only 2 letters, so it's a little easier, and you can't spell a foul word with them.
Oh, Electronic Arts, EA.
Yep.
Yeah, Motorola Stitch 2.
Okay, you're back at the index card register. You got your finger in there, and you're using that 0 offset, and your finger's pointing in there. That is the effective address. That is where we're going. If you were to say that you wanted to look backwards 4 cards, that is the effective address, because it's where your main finger is pointing and then 4 cards back. So that's the term we use for whenever the 6809 is basically going to point to a location in memory to get its data, is the effective address. And we also have an instruction called load effective address in the 6809 that works with these modes. And this is where it gets a little bumpy.
Okay.
Just to kind of show you briefly, the load effective address can be used to load into the X, Y, U, and S registers. They're 16-bit pointers. It's a way to take the effective address and move it into one of your index registers. That's essentially what we're doing. So it's load effective address into X, Y, U, and S. There is no load effective address for the PC register, the program counter.
Okay.
It can be used in the reference, but there is no LEA PC. But you can definitely load up any one of the 4 standard index registers using the load effective address command. And on the next slide, we've got some examples. Let's say that you want to use your data pointer called data table a lot. You want a register to point to it and use references to it. Well, load effective address data table comma PC will allow you to get that data register and table and load it into the X register, because what it's saying is we've calculated effective address that's data table comma PC, and we're now transferring into the X register. The next one will make much more sense. Load effective address 32 comma X. That means,
am I on the wrong slide?
okay, yeah, go to the next slide. Sorry. There we go. Sorry. The next example I've got here is load effective address 32 comma X. Well, remember before X is pointing those cards, we skip ahead 32 cards. We have a new effective address of whatever X has plus 32, and that's now moved into the X register. We effectively just added the number 32 to X.
Okay.
And it's still with me?
Load effective address of X.
Uh-huh.
You're basically saying stick into X whatever is 32 bytes forward.
Yep.
Of X.
Yeah, it's basically X equals X plus, or X equals 32 plus X.
Mm-hmm.
In this case,
it's a way to sit there and add numbers to index registers. If you want to move it 32 bytes, this,
which would be a text scan line or even a graphic scan line for this case.
Exactly.
Right.
So I want to move down one line. So if I'm drawing a line from the top of the screen to the bottom of the screen, I could use this 32 comma X to move one scan line.
Okay.
It's a very quick,
whatever the effective address was, which would be like wherever in memory your screen was, for example, your text screen or your graphic screen.
Right. It's a very easy way to add numbers to an index register. The next one, by the way, in all operations of the processor, you're sitting there saying load up this X register with 32 comma X, wouldn't it get confused? No, the actual transfer of information to the X register happens after the instruction is completed. So X gets 32 added to it, then gets transferred into X. So the next one, load effective address X minus X. That does the auto decrementing to X, and it basically is doing a decrement to X. This type of instruction is put in here so you could use X as a counter. So let's say that it was a fairly large number. Let's say like the size of the screen, which is over 6K. You could load up X with the size of the screen. You do load effective address minus X, and it will auto decrement. It will sit there and subtract 1 from X. You could have also said load effective address minus 1 comma X too. Both of these will cause the X register to subtract by 1. So you're now able to use the X register not only as an index register, but as a counting register for a loop. Handy if you got something that's bigger than 256 steps.
Yep.
Yeah. So this is a way to use it for counting. So these are just 3 simple examples of load effective address.
And you can get much more sophisticated because your register that you're using to calculate whatever you're putting into whatever register that you've picked for the LEA instruction itself can be different registers. You can have LEAX 32, Y.
Mm-hmm.
Basically means X equals Y plus 32. So you're actually doing additions between completely different things and putting them into a new register.
Thank you, Curtis. That's a point that I kind of skipped here, but yeah, it is. It's a very powerful command. You could actually load off where the stack pointer is pointing. Using this, you can get all sorts of information moved around. Now, it should be noted that only the load effective address X and load effective address Y operations will affect the 0 flag. See, like if you did like added 2 numbers together in the A register and the answer became 0, the 0 flag would get set. Well, the load effective address X and Y's affect the 0 flag. So if we're using the example I have here of load effective address negative X, and I'm using it for counting down, see when we reach 0, what happens? Our 0 flag gets set. So it allows it to work very good. Now, otherwise, none of the condition codes, things like negative or carrier or these other condition code flags, will be affected by this instruction. So it lets us use it for counting. That's mostly what it's used for if we're trying to do something that requires a lot of steps like the wiping an entire screen.
Got a question for you.
Mm-hmm.
Does LEAS and LEAU affect the 0 flag? I think they do. I'm not sure.
They do
No,
not.
they do not.
Ah, interesting.
Yep.
So,
Because those are used for pushing and pulling information off the stack. And they didn't want that to affect the stuff. So you have to remember, X and Y will affect the 0 flag, but the S and U will not. And I've seen people get mixed up because I've seen infinite loops because somebody was using the U register to count some number.
I did that once.
Yeah, I've done it too.
Yeah. So you got to be careful.
Okay.
All right. And let's go to that final slide. So we're doing okay, Stevie.
We're
didn't.
doing good.
Okay. Basically, that is it for the addressing modes right now. We'll get into more how to use them and how effectively, but that's pretty much the whole gambit as far as addressing modes, especially when it comes with the index. And as you can see, Steve, they're really powerful. They give you lots of options to do things.
Yeah.
Now, in our next lesson, we're going to look at the last instructions that I haven't covered, like the multiply command and exchange and transfer and other things. It's just going to move information around inside the CPU. So we will have covered in our 10th lesson all the instructions and addressing modes, more or less, in the 609. There's a couple of things I'm going to go over, which has to do with interrupts and hardware, and we'll cover those as we actually cover interrupts and hardware. And let's see, then we're going to get into actual doing some coding. And this is part of the show where I can't say how much I'm enjoying Paul's Long Branch Never series out there on YouTube and like that. It is a great series. He is, I don't know if he calls it episode 0 or 1, actually will allow you to get set up with doing assembly on your computer. And I highly recommend going to YouTube, look for Long Branch Never.
I have a link to that I'll be showing when we get to the news segment today.
Because we're going to use his model also for our classes. I figure that's the best thing. He's got a series going. What he's got set up for doing assembly language, we're actually going to be writing on the PC. We're going to use emulators on the PC, and then we'll eventually get the code inside of a CoCo. But this is the fastest way for people that have modern computers to get down and get dirty with a little bit of 6809 goodness.
There you go. 6809 goodness. I like that.
Yeah.
I like to use the OS9 assembler myself. But
All right. All right. Well, how about we do this? How long have we been doing this now? It's been an hour. We've been into the show for an hour now. Well, thank you, Steve, for all of that. It's a lot of information. And
I just want to add one more thing real fast. Once we get lesson 10 in, this has been the plan all along. Stevie and I are going to work together. We're going to take the slides, make them available as a PDF, and also put all the different segments together in one video.
There we go.
And so look for that coming to a YouTube channel near you.
Yeah, so we're going to take a break here in just a second. But yeah, this has been a great little segment, and I'm glad we got Paul here because we're going to be talking about Long Branch Never and setting up an environment, which I'm about 80% through. So we'll hold the questions and comments until after the break. But everybody good? Everybody in the panel good so far?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
All right.
I think Steve Bjork is doing an outstanding job explaining all of this.
All right. And James Jones says applause. Well done, Steve. Yeah, there's been a lot of sidebar chat going on during the whole presentation, and so we'll look at some of that when we come back. All right. So we're going to take our first brief break. So smoke them if you got them. Potty if you have to. We'll be back here in just a minute.
CoCoTALK will return after these messages.
How does it feel? I'm still believing.
What if you could go back in time to just the right moment and ensure that Tandy won?
You definitely earned this office.
Thank you. Yes, you're too kind.
Oh, I'm much happier breaking stuff. Life has been a dream.
But what if you went back to the wrong moment?
Give me that. How do you even know what that was?
Listen, I don't really care about these blueprints. I just want...
Say, who are you? You want to spy for Commodore or something, are you?
Just move! Oh. Hey, hold the elevator! Hold the
Stop right there!
Whoa, no need for guns, no need for guns!
So, Mr. Anders, it seems you have stumbled upon my little secret. There is no point in waiting for security. I think you are about to have an accident.
Okay, no!
Coco, forever? 2018.
My fellow Americans, Australians, Canadians, Europeans, and all of you ands, I'm calling on all y'all to help us make the world great again by visiting the Retro Swag Shop at 8bit256.com, where you can get yourself a coffee mug like this with a little cute cartoon character that says, I'm a cocoa nut. You could also get yourself a coffee mug like this with a Color Computer 3 that says, I'm a cocoa nut. You could get yourself a deluxe travel mug like this with the CoCoTALK logo on it. You might even be able to get yourself a DVD like this with over 2 hours of gameplay goodness. It is time for us to rise up and make the world great again by enjoying some quality retro merchandise and Coco nostalgia. So please visit 8bit256.com and let's make the world great for the Color Computer. Thank you very much.
CoCoTALK is brought to you in part by Placeblex Dietary Supplement. Placeblex. We think it works, so will you.
It's a Radio Shack Merry Christmas.
This year, I needed to give a real family pleaser.
Honey, please help me with this budget.
How about a new game, Dad? Please.
And I found it. Radio Shack's Color Computer 2. On sale for just $99.95. It entertains, educates, manages, it's expandable, and affordable. Now that really pleases me.
The Color Computer 2. Sale price for Christmas. Only at Radio Shack.
We now return you to CoCoTALK.
All right. Well, we are back, everybody. We are back with CoCoTALK.
I have something.
Uh-oh. Ron has something. Is there a cure for it?
I have a like an overview of what we just went through.
An overview.
Yeah, and what we have here is the X, Y, and U registers here.
Okay. Uh-huh.
And this is my pointer. Okay. And I'm going to use a direct mode, and I'm going to grab a cookie, and I'm going to take it from an effective address, and I'm going to push it.
And then you're going to load it immediately into your mouth.
It's off the stack, okay? And I'm going to jump to index my decrement. What do you think?
I think Steve Bjork can now retire. You've basically summarized everything in just the Oreo cookie analogy.
It's Oreo, it's cocoa.
All I can say is when you're done with that analogy, the code's going to look like cookies and cream.
This code's a little crummy.
I wasn't going to go there. I was not going to go.
Oh, so a Curtis screensaver.
Yeah, there you go.
I took notes.
Ron took notes.
That notes are a shopping list.
Notes.
On the presentation or on the cookies? What did you take notes on?
On the presentation.
Okay.
Long branching never.
Yeah. Now, I was scanning through the comments and like that, and somebody said, gee, when would incrementing by 1 be useful when you're trying to write 2 bytes or something like that? And it's not. And actually, when they made the 68,000, you can't do that. The auto incrementing, auto decrementing is automatic. If you're referring to something that's a byte, 8 bits, it increments by 1. If you're referring to something that's 16 bits or 2 bytes, it's referred to as a auto decrement by 2. In other words, the instruction's smart enough to know should it do it once or should it do it twice. In the case of the 6809, not quite so much.
I will mention I have seen it used as a trick if you need to overwrite a byte. In some special cases, there's about 1 or 2 cases in Basic 09. There's 1 or 2 cases in one other program I was working on. Like, it's very rarely used, but there is a couple of times where I've actually seen it used effectively, but it's rare.
Yeah, it's something as you as a programmer have to keep track of. So you want to use either 2 pluses or 2 minuses when you're talking to 16 bits or 2 bytes of data. And if you're just talking to 1 byte, you use a single plus or a single minus.
1 byte.
1 bite of a cookie. There you go.
Right.
1 bite.
That's
and
right.
so Al
And the
Hartman.
little bits that fall are called bits. Yeah.
Yeah, Al Hartman said if you were doing 16-bit, it would be a double stuff Oreo. So.
Now, how does the milk dunking the cookies? How does that fall into assembly?
Well, that's an indirect mode in that
Exactly.
case.
Because
Directly
it doesn't-
putting the cookie in the milk before it hits your mouth.
It doesn't directly go into your mouth, right?
Coke does not go well.
Yeah.
No.
Life is like a bag
Get
of
the
cookies.
foaming.
Yeah. That's the new Forrest Gump quote. Assembly's like a bag of cookies.
I do know that this lesson was definitely a little more technical than the ones in the past, but once again, this is just an offset of the processor. It's just the way the processor is designed. It was a fairly complex, and we'll better explain it when we get into the coding.
Yeah. It's also a longer lesson, but there's so many index modes on the 6809. If you split it, you'd kind of forget what you learned last week, and it was better, I think, to group it all together, even though it was a longer lesson than normal.
Supposedly, there's like 1,400 different variations of instructions on the 6809, and I would say that a good 80% of those is because of the different styles and flavors of the index addressing.
Yeah, and which registers you're using, and whether they're indirect or non-indirect, and et cetera, et cetera. If you take a look in the Motorola programming manual or in Leventhal's book or any of the 609 books, you'll see they usually have a table of just covering all the index modes and all the different permutations it has.
And then when you add the index addressing, it almost doubles it. So it's just, for an 8-bit processor, having that many different instructions was very unusual. I mean, the 6502 had less than 256 instructions. So,
there you have it.
It's
But
very
the
powerful.
6809 is not the king of the heap, though. The 6309 is.
We're not talking about that in these.
That's the second batch.
That's the next day, yeah.
Well, see, if we had included all the 6309 instructions, Stevie would have a long time ago went, boom.
Plus, we want to start with the CPU that everybody has. I mean, not everybody has a 609, so that'll be like a separate set of lessons. It's just like Barry was mentioning about using OS 9 assembly. There's some things you do a little bit differently because of the way OS 9 works, which I would like to do a series on later on myself to help people with that. But we want to concentrate on the core that everybody has. Everybody has a 6809 and a CoCo, or emulated one. Not everybody has OS 9. Not everybody has a 609.
And most people, when they want to write a program or game, they want it to work on the most computers and like that. That's the reason why, some of the stuff that I wrote in the past, it works on all 3 CoCos. Of course, Arcanine was unusual because not only did it work on all 3 CoCos, it understood the difference and actually graphically did 2 different versions. So we will not get into that for a while.
Very impressive program, by the way. I thoroughly enjoy playing Arkanoid from time to time. It's one of my daughter's favorite games, too.
I have to admit, it was one of my more favorite ones to work on. That and Rampage.
Hey, Al Hartman's asking, is the Hydrox cookie the 6309 instructions? If Oreo is the 6809. And Chad Cunningham says you look a little bit like Jeff Bridges, Rondelvo.
Yeah.
No. The Hydrox cookie is more like the 6803.
68.
Not quite as good.
Not
Which one are the Chips Ahoy's?
Which came first?
Anyway, I'm going to have to get out of here pretty quick, so I'm just wondering if there's any questions from chat or from the panel or anything else that I might help answer along with Steve.
El Diva Boyle wants to know.
Yes,
questions?
Please bow down before me and ask any questions before.
Yes.
Do you have
questions
a
or comments?
Do you have a ring to kiss?
What?
Ring.
I was going to comment on the code. Basically, the code difference for OS 9 is pretty much you need to write position-independent code and reference the data area off of the U register where your data is stored, because your program and your data area can move around in memory. So in order to find where your program is, or actually not find where it is, but you just don't care where it is, you write it, your code is position independent code. You use long branch instead of jump, etc. And for finding your data, you usually reference your data loads off of the U stack as an offset to find where your data is stored.
Well, I always like to know where my cookie is.
Yeah. Towards the end of the assembly language lessons, I'll be working with Curtis, and we'll actually have a segment on how to write for OS 9.
Okay.
Yeah, and eventually I'll do an entire series on it too. So
yeah, but
when you guys make a program or whatever, are you going to have that available to download?
Yes, that will be available to download. Cool. Curtis, you're going to be able to kind of watch the show while you're traveling for a little bit, right?
Not watch. I'll be able to hear it.
Or hear it, at least. Well, I see that David Ladd's with us. We'll work with him so we can definitely take Stevie up a few notches on DEF CON.
Okay, just throwing a whole bunch of acronyms.
Yep. I just didn't want you to miss out.
Okay.
Okay. With that, I will say goodbye because it doesn't sound like there's any further questions that I might be able to help with. So I'll listen to you guys on the road until I run out of cell phone service and catch the show on video replay later.
All right. We do have a question from Salvador Garcia of the Glenside Color Computer Club, and it is an emulator question that he wants to pose to the panel, and I guess to the other people watching too. So Salvador, if you want to go ahead and
see you, Curtis,
and drop in your question. Take care, Curtis. Okay. So Salvador, go ahead and drop us your emulator question, because I know he had posted it before, and I forgot what it was. While we're waiting on Salvador's question, anybody else wanted to chime in on just any follow-up stuff about the segment we just covered? Going
Steve
once.
Gave a lot of information.
Yes, he did, David. Excellent. All right, well, we're waiting on Salvador. How about we do real quick, since we didn't start off with our panel introduction. We've got a few more members of the panel. Here comes Salvador coming through. We are going to go ahead and just say real quick. So Curtis is here. Curtis, you got to go, but anything you want to let us know before you go, Curtis?
No, the only thing I'll say is that work is finally actually really slowing down. So I'm hoping by next weekend I should be back on working on ease of use and some other projects. And
Yay.
Excellent.
Still, that's the first thing, and I'm not sure exactly what order I'll do stuff in. This next week here, if I don't work too much for work, I probably will take a break from computers in general because I've been using them way too much lately.
Mm-hmm.
But by next weekend, I'm hoping to be back in the CoCo projects.
Excellent.
What are you doing on ease of use to fix the boot track generation issues?
Talk to Bill Noble on that one. He's actually working on the boot file stuff.
I looked at it a little bit. I was tried a few patches for OS 9 Gen and stuff. Didn't work out. I'm still trying to fix it. I figured I thought Bill was working on it as well, though.
He is. He's actively working on it. He's actually giving me some hints of what he's been doing there. He's actually making it kind of GUI oriented too, to make it easier to use. But Bill would be the one to talk to on that because I've been too busy with work to really look at what he's been doing.
Yeah, the biggest thing is basically that the boot track generation stuff doesn't understand how to properly offset the boot track for anything other than a single-sided floppy. Well, it does it on a double-sided floppy that's less than 80 tracks too, but it really was designed for floppy stuff. And when you try to generate a boot track on like an SDC hard drive image or a real hard drive, it sort of doesn't work too well.
Yeah. Anyway, I'm off. Talk
All right,
to you
Curtis.
later.
Be good.
Thanks,
Be
Curtis.
good.
Yeah.
We're still waiting on Salvador's question. So, Mark D. Overholzer, what's been going on with you this week? Anything you want to update us on?
Well, nothing I've been working on CoCo related or old classic computer related.
Okay.
So.
Oh, by the way, you were in Retro Challenge. Did you finish your challenge, or how did your piece work out?
No, I got started, but I got bogged down in getting the server working right. So I'm still working on it. I hope to have the foundation done by next challenge. And I'll actually do a game.
Okay. Gotcha. All right. Well, now Salvador's question has come in, and I haven't actually read the latest newsletter because somewhere in that newsletter also tells you how you can vote on the upcoming positions for the Glenside, like who do you want to vote for president, things like that. But so here's Salvador's question. So it says, for anyone that has seen the latest Glenside Color Computer Club newsletter, I did a piece on Jeff Vasasor's emulators. The Coco 2 emulator was okay, but the Coco 3 emulator was sluggish, slow, and unresponsive. I'd like to know if anyone has had the same experience or knows why it would be. I ran the Jeff Vazasur emulators under DOSBox. So, anybody have any experience with those? I know, David, you've used them in the past, haven't you?
I was playing with the installation of Jeff Vavasur's Coco 3 emulator, and I was using it in VirtualBox because of the fact that you have to do all kinds of funky stuff to get the full 512K working in DOSBox. So that would be my recommendation, is just try VirtualBox, install either FreeDOS or MS-DOS 6.22, and then install Jeff's emulator and see how it works on your system.
Yeah, I got it working in DOSBox with a full 512, but it was a pain in the butt. I have to say, it requires some special types, specific types of DOS memory that is not just EMM or EMS or high mem. It requires very specific versions of it, and it did not play well with DOSBox.
It never worked well back in the day. I actually paid for the Coco 3 version when it was for sale, and between the compared to the Coco 2 version, the Coco 3 version was not very usable.
I found it usable, but yeah, I actually paid for it too. I found it usable. Maybe I had a faster machine, but it did have, well, the biggest issue was the 512 memory. That actually worked better on a physical DOS machine than it does under a DOS emulation these days.
Yeah.
Now, this is not VCC, right?
No, this is Jeff Vazasur. Jeff Vazasur wrote some of the earliest emulators for the Coco that actually ran under DOS before MAME and VCC were out. So these are some really legacy emulators. And it's sounding like right now he's running an emulator to run the emulator. So that's like kind of like the double layer gimme here.
I don't know why anyone would bother. It's
and again, without trying to insult you, Salvador, that's a great question. My question would be why. But again, what we're doing vintage, we're doing retro things. This is the vintage retro emulator for the Coco. This is one of the first Coco emulators. So if you want to preserve the history of Cocos, this is one of those chapters. It was an old DOS-based Coco emulator. But yeah, I mean, I would question other than preserving it and having it still work. I can't see any practical benefit to doing it myself when we have XROR, which is a modern GUI thing. We've got MAME right now. If somebody's asking, if you want to ask the question, which we've seen this question on Facebook, what's the best way to emulate a Color Computer 3? There is really only one answer, and that answer is MAME. Other than real hardware, the best way to emulate a Color Computer 3 right now is MAME, because VCC, it has lots of known issues with gimmies and with the 6809 and 6309. So there are things that VCC will do that real hardware won't do. There are things that real hardware won't do that VCC can't do. And I'm not trying to poo-poo on the project. I'm just stating some facts, right? So VCC is fairly user-friendly. It's nice. It's easy to use. But for hardware-based emulation, it's not the best. So, and for better or worse, right now, MAME is the only close to reliable solution for Coco 3 emulation. Now,
I don't know. I find VCC to be, don't get me wrong, I like MAME. As you know, I work on some of the code for MAME development from time to time. VCC I find to be probably well over 90 some odd % accurate. It certainly is usable, but it does have differences. If you're trying to do some of the stuff like I try to do, which is compare and validate code to see how it's actually going to work on real hardware, the way to go is MAME. If you just want to run software and games, well, VCC will probably do it most of the time.
Yeah, but when we were talking about doing development and like something like what Simon Jonason would be doing, where he's pushing the CPU and he's pushing the gimme and he's pushing scan lines and things like that, VCC is not the best.
If you want accuracy to see how the thing is going to actually be run on real hardware, you want to be using MAME.
Yeah. Or
if you just want to run a game program and play a game, VCC will certainly do that for you.
Or if you're just beginning doing a little bit of programming and assembly, VCC is fine.
Yeah.
I agree. And especially if you're just playing around with the basic. Yeah. VCC is fine for just doing like beginning code and, and basic programming and play around with the computer and play some games. But if you're serious and you want to make sure that your program will run on the real hardware, but you're testing it on emulation, the only emulator that is really super accurate is the MAME emulator. Even if the user interface is more of a pain in the butt, I admit, but accuracy is definitely up there.
The one thing I will say about MAME, though, is don't be an early adopter. When a new version comes out, wait a while and let the other people see if there are problems. So if you've got a good, stable version that's working well for you on MAME, don't be in a rush to update, because MAME doesn't just support the CoCo, it supports a lot of different emulations out there.
I agree. I've lost count of the number of times that I've downloaded a new copy of MAME and started it up and found that they broke something that was previously working.
Exactly. And of course, David is a good canary in the coal mine, because he goes through and does try out the new builds and creates them himself and like that. And he's always reporting about this being broken or that being broken. There's other people in the CoCo community the same way. They're involved in the project. So I would say wait a minimum of a month before updating to a new version. But if your version's working for you, I say don't update until absolutely necessary.
Yeah. Right, because actually one of the more recent updates somebody posted on Facebook, the CoCo 3 now shows you two screens side by side. It shows you the RGB and composite at the same time.
There is an option to turn that off.
Yeah.
But I'm working on having that. I'm working with a few people on the development to have that the default to be one of the two screens, and then an option to turn it on if you want it on.
Right.
So, MAME on the CoCo Pi has many different flavors. There's a
you can choose what version. You can set your default version on there.
6309 with 2 mega RAM.
Yeah, they all support that, whether it be Raspberry Pi or the other systems.
Well, what's nice about Pi is there's a menu.
Yeah, but the main thing here is you've got a program that's written for a lot of different computers to emulate a lot of different things, and it's a big project. There are some very smart people working on it. They're working very hard, but an unforeseen problem can come up in this type of environment. So don't be a rush to update. Make sure other people find that it's working well before you download that version. Nobody wants to be that canary in the mine.
Yeah, somebody will make an update for like NES simulation and it'll end up breaking something on the CoCo or something like that. So
exactly.
If you do update, you decide you want some features the new version has, I strongly suggest that you keep the current version that you have off to one side while you try out the new one, so that if it doesn't work correctly, you can fall back to what you had that worked.
Okay, let's get back to his original question now, Salvador Garcia. And when I did ask the question why, I said, why would you want to run the Jeff Vazasor CoCo 3? He's basically saying for classic historical purposes, right? But we have noted that the Jeff Vazasor CoCo 3 emulator is not the best of CoCo 3 emulators, but he wants to do it for just historical preservation reasons. So I believe a few people have given you some examples. So one example was to use VirtualBox instead of DOSBox. Right, and VirtualBox is a free emulation system, kind of like VMware, but it was taken over by Sun and now Oracle. Right, so you can get VirtualBox and build an MS-DOS based machine there. And then the other answer was that even in DOSBox, there are some very specific things you need to do in memory. And can anybody tell him specifically, if he wanted to use DOSBox, some things to look for in either the hardware setup of the machine or some of the DOSBox config settings you might have to look at?
I am trying to locate my notes on this as we were sitting here talking. It involves finding and loading, I think, if I remember correctly, a copy of EMM386.exe into DOSBox.
Oh, the actual emulator part that real DOS used.
Yeah, because although DOSBox has an EMS memory emulation,
Mm-hmm.
it is a different version of it than what the Coco 3 stuff is expecting to see. So it doesn't pick it up.
So almost like you have to do a config sys inside that DOSBox machine to load that memory manager. Okay. Hey, Bruce Moore has just joined us. Hello, Bruce. Okay. Well, hopefully we'll get some more details on there. But it sounds like, Salvador, that a few people have done it and they have been able to make it to work. So if you want to preserve that, it seems like you can. One way I do think. Sorry, who just spoke?
Me.
Hey, David.
Is it okay for me to interject some more information on Jeff Eversour's emulator?
Please do.
Now, I actually still use some of the components of Jeff Eversour's emulator, as I still have what would now probably be considered a retro or, an old 486 PC that I've got both a high density 3.5 and high density 5 1/4 in, that all it has is MS-DOS 6.22, and I use the disk utilities that came with Jeff's emulator to read real floppies into disk images, and then I copy them over the network. So that way I can make disk images rather easily.
So let me see if I followed you. You're talking about you have a physical PC.
Yep.
486 era PC with a floppy drive. You're putting a real Coco disk in that floppy drive.
Yep.
And then the Jeff Vasosaur's got some command line, similar to like what Paul Fiscarelli was showing us with the disk extender color basics, got the disk any command to make a disk image.
Mm-hmm.
There's a command line tool in that emulator that would read in a real Coco floppy and create a JVC disk image of that.
Yep.
Okay, I followed you. I actually followed something David Ladd said, everybody. So, so that is actually
not enough acronyms.
Yes. So that makes sense, and that becomes that's what they call a tweener machine, right? Where it's something you use to migrate files between different systems and platforms and formats and stuff. So.
I actually used to use on Windows XP VCC and a special driver that would allow VCC to get direct access to the floppy controller on the PC, and then you could directly read floppies from within VCC.
Okay.
And that used to be how I used to back up floppies, because it was easier that way than it was to use the 486. But now with Windows 10 and today's machines don't come with floppy controllers, it's you're pretty much stuck keeping an older machine around just for transferring stuff.
Gotcha. All right, so that's one good reason to keep the Jeff Vasosaur emulator around, is for a different method of copying a Coco floppy to a floppy disk image, not requiring the actual Coco or Coco drive.
Did you, Steve, did you see when I emulated the Coco 2 on my Tandy 1000?
Yes, and it was running kind of slowly.
But it worked.
Yeah. That's actually kind of neat, because now you're running a Tandy machine to emulate another Tandy machine, right? So
exactly.
Yeah. Excellent. Very cool. Well, hopefully we've given Salvador some information to work with.
I have the answer to his question about
and Barry's got more information. Okay, Barry, lay it on us.
What I had to do was I had to create an actual floppy disk image for drive A on DOSBox. And then instead of booting with a normal DOSBox boot method, you have to mount the floppy image on drive A, which actually has DOS 5, and boot off of, inside DOSBox you say boot space -L space A, and it actually boots the A drive and boots into a real copy of DOS, and then loads the real EMM386, etc.
Oh, wow. Now, is it possible you could make a copy of that boot disk image and get it to Salvador to save him some.
I could conceivably put it somewhere where he can get to it.
I think it's probably a small enough file that you could even drag it into a Facebook post, and it's not going to raise any antivirus flags, I'm sure.
Oh my God! It's the DOS virus. Run!
Yes. So
I'm not sure which. I guess Well, I guess ask him where I can put it. That he can
well,
find
just
it.
you're on Facebook. Look under the Glenside Color Computer Facebook group, or look for Salvador in the CoCo group. You'll find him.
The Glenside Color Computer. I don't know if I'm a member of
All
that.
right. Well, just put it in the CoCo group. You're in there. Salvador, Salvador, post in the CoCo group.
I can do that. Okay.
Yeah. So that's your best case scenario, Salvador. At that point, DOSBox is only emulating the hardware, and the actual real MS-DOS operating system boots, and then theoretically it should all work as long as the hardware emulation's good enough, you know.
It does work. I've used it on my Mac that way, and it ran.
Yeah. This almost became a core dump. This almost became a core dump segment. Matter of fact, just for craps and giggles,
do it.
We're going to go ahead and run the core dump thing here because I've done an update to the core dump, which I think Nick will like here. All right, check this out, everybody.
All right.
There we go. The core dump video now has the flush sound built into it. So if my soundboard takes a dump, we won't miss the flushing sounds.
That's good. I approve.
Well, it's good. It's not two flushes.
Yeah. All right. So we'll get that to you, Salvador. We'll figure that out. Salvador and Barry, you guys figure out a way to link up and transfer files. I believe in this 21st century there are ways to do that. All right.
Now on the CoCo Facebook group.
There you go. All right. So
file post there shortly.
We're going to continue our round robin here now as we do How's Everybody Been this week, since we didn't do that at the top of the show. So Mark Overholzer, we started with you, and you said that you're nothing new this week, and you didn't finish Retro Challenge, and that's okay. We still like you. Despite the fact you have an apple in the background, we still like you. All right. Now, what about... Yeah, Ron, go ahead.
Is he emulating an apple on an apple with a CoCo emulated with a DOS box?
Yeah, it's actually a CoCo running an emulator.
It's a CoCo running an Apple emulator. And then, there you go. Inception there.
Very funny.
Okay. Jason, the CoCo man Reichert, I know at least one thing happened to you this week that you may or may not want to share with us.
One thing happened. It did. And I will share it. I made a road trip, and I saved some CoCo stuff from the dumpster. And... I picked up a few things. I haven't had a chance to go through all of them, but
But what did you go through first?
Well, I have the amazing CoCo 1 with no screws in it.
No screws. Who needs screws?
Yeah, I mean
it's a convertible.
There's no screws. There's nothing holding in the motherboard. It's just kind of there, and it.
Wow! When you say no screws, literally no screws.
No screws. Yeah. No screws whatsoever.
That CoCo 1 has a screw loose.
I guess somebody said screw you too many times.
What board's in it?
The screws are the easiest thing to replace. So.
Well, it doesn't work anyway. I did power it up. I just get a black screen. First, what board it has in it, I have no idea. It's green.
It's got one of those green ones. Okay.
Got one of those green boards.
That's why the background color is green too. It gets that from the board.
I did not know that. That's an interesting fact. I have a bunch of stuff I haven't even gone through. There's a heavily modified CoCo 2, a heavily modified CoCo 3 with the CoCo 3 keyboard on a ribbon cable mounted to a piece of wood. I'll probably be taking some pictures of that stuff at some point and putting them up on Facebook. One of the cool things that was in the box of stuff, there's a bunch of software, including a copy of, let's see if I can get the glare off it.
Ghana Buana.
Still sealed.
Wow.
It's sealed. Still has the price tag on it.
$2.95. So that's been reduced.
$2.95. I mean, no expenses been spared.
Wow.
So it's in the shrink wrap here. And where is?
So that's still got that new game smell if you were ever to crack it open.
Trust me, after this number of years, it's not a new smell. You can tell by just how much it's yellowed.
It has yellowed. Yes.
It has Radio Shack factory air in it.
Actually, the actual comic book hasn't yellowed. What it is the cellophane they use to show the comic book.
Ah, okay.
That's yellowed.
Could you retrograde that?
Retrobrite your saran wrap, huh?
Trust me, it's a lot easier to peel off the cellophane and put a new one on, especially considering the plastic is also not plastic, the glue that held the plastic in has also aged and probably will flake right off.
Mm.
Yeah, as I said, the old packaging just doesn't hold up.
I also got an MC10, and it's around here somewhere. I don't know where the heck it went.
Is that the limited edition?
Yeah, it's over by the door.
Is it over by the door?
Is that the limited edition signed by Steve Bjork MC10?
Oh, you got your sign? Oh, man.
I have a feeling if it's signed by Steve, there's no certificate of authenticity.
Also,
You got that one right.
viewable on the internet.
It said, "Thank you for killing the deluxe color computer, Steve Bjork."
And it was just here. I just had it a minute ago. I don't know where it went.
I saw the video you posted on the MC10 group where you wrote a program that actually made Jim Gary retire. So,
By the way, folks, maybe I shouldn't be so critical of the MC10.
Uh-oh.
I mean, it ended the life of the deluxe computer before it could get started. It was basically aborted. And if that deluxe color computer actually went in production and hanged around, it could have delayed the Coco 3 to the point that we never got it.
What?
Yeah.
that almost sounds like an alternate version of reality. Why did Tandy do that question?
More importantly, I think Bruce can come up with a new story or two based on that.
Right?
Yeah. Conspiracy theories reign true.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it could have, in looking at time, could have affected the existence of the Coco 3, because the Coco 3 was definitely a product of its time as far as technology that was available, as far as what Tandy was willing to spend, and like that. So Coco 3 could not have come earlier. But if something could delay the Coco 3, the color computer line would have been dead already.
Hey, did you guys see online where they were showing the packages of keyboards that were sold that were black instead of gray, Coco 3 keyboards, and they said
we've talked about
were,
before. Those were the deluxe color computers. Keyboard sold for $5 in the Radio Shack.
Yeah, so that's actually a remnant leftover.
Yeah.
I've got a few of them. I think I even got one still in the baggie.
That's kind of cool.
How much you want for it?
I think I went through and bought about 20 of them when they were in the stores.
Awesome.
All right, so you got so you made a road trip, Jason, and you got some Cocos. You got an MC10, some software, some books.
Yeah, I even got this very very early 80s looking assembly language book for the TRS-80 model something.
Model 1.
So got some goodies. It was about a 6 hour. It was like over a 6 hour round trip, but it was worth it. And
oh yeah,
more to follow.
And this was a message that was posted in the Glenside Facebook group. Did Tony Pedraza originally mention this, saying that there's a Coco user who's going to throw stuff away if somebody doesn't come save it?
Yeah, that's what it was. And I actually ended up spending about an hour chatting with him when I was picking up the items, and he had talked about quite a few things. And
did he almost change his mind?
You know what? I had to wonder at one point. It's like, I better get out of here before he changes his mind. He had a setup where he was programming EEPROMs, I guess, with a Coco 3, with a Coco 2 in tandem somehow. I haven't even looked at that yet. I mean, there's some EEPROM programming software on a cassette, and a lot of modifications. It's going to be interesting. There's even some kind of RCA connector on the bottom. I got a monochrome a monochrome monitor also, and I guess he was using that for 80 column text. So this it's a lot of modifications, a lot of things to go through and just figure out what was actually done and see what still works.
What brand's the monochrome monitor?
I believe it's a Magnavox.
Oh.
And he even said the Coco 2 has a it has a different ROM in it because it's looking for something from the Coco 3 to burn the EEPROM. So I think there's some manuals to look at here, but it's
okay, interesting.
I think in these days it would be something impractical to do, but it's neat that you could do it with a Coco. But I mean, at this point, I could go get a USB EEPROM programmer on eBay or something. But it's
interesting.
Still really interesting that I didn't even know you could do that with a Coco.
Take pictures.
Oh, there'll be plenty of pictures, and I think there's a Facebook group for pictures of your color computer, isn't there?
There is.
There is.
Show us your tea. Show us your tandies.
I don't know if you know anything about that Facebook group, Ron.
I've heard of it.
No, you've heard of it? Okay.
I've heard of it.
Ron is pretty antisocial. You won't catch him on Facebook too often.
Not much. I don't post all day in the.
It's almost like he doesn't have a job.
I don't. Did you see the artwork I did?
Yeah, hamburgers and all kinds of stuff. You're making me hungry. Yeah.
Well, I have now posted onto the TRS-80 Color Computer group a boot floppy for DOSBox, which will allow Jeff Vavasur's Color Computer emulator to load on DOSBox and give you 512K of memory.
There you go. There you have it. Thank you, Barry Nelson.
Thank you, Barry.
All right. So continuing the How Was Your Week segment. Thank you. Anything else, Jason?
I just noticed this copy of Rescue and Fractalis is also sealed, but I like I said, I haven't even had time to go through it yet. I've been so busy this week, so I'm still looking at it. I got a Coco 3 service manual. I mean, real one. I mean, there's so much stuff I don't even know all what I have yet.
But how are you going to play that Rescue on Fractalis game if it's sealed?
Or patch it.
Yeah, we'll have to get the Curtis Boyle version, right? So
there you go.
There you go.
Excellent. Well, who else wants to tell us how their week's been as far as anything new and exciting that you've done this week as far as a project update or anything else? Anybody got something for us?
Except that there'll be soon my next blog entry. I've done a bit more work on Gunstar, mainly about the graphics engine. So I'm trying to write my blog to explain what the hell it is I've done. So yeah, it's a little bit difficult to make it easy to understand, but it should be up this week sometime.
Excellent. So a new blog coming soon from Nick Marionettes.
More bullshit.
I got a question, since we have some very famous game developers on here. I can't remember who is it that wrote the Shanghai game for a Tandy Color Computer in the car.
If only we knew. If only that person was on the call.
Steve?
Thank you, sir. So kind.
I believe it was Simon Jonasson.
Yeah, Simon.
Thank you. You're so kind. Yes.
Yeah, really.
No, I think wasn't it either Steve Bjork or?
It wasn't me. It was a much more infamous programmer.
Okay, well,
he's on the screen here somewhere. He's got headphones on and he's got a beard, so that narrows it down to.
Again, you have to guess.
He's above a Canadian.
Well, you do realize that Shanghai actually affected the output of Tandy Corporation?
What?
In a good way?
Yeah, it negatively affected the output.
What?
To the point that if anybody had Tandy on their PC or on their Coco, had Shanghai playing, and they were not involved in the direct production or testing of the game, would be fired.
Whoa.
Oh, because it was such a time killer that people were losing productivity because of playing the game.
People were playing hours a day.
Yeah, solitaire.
Yeah, it was worse than solitaire.
Is that like an early Sudoku?
there was a patch for that I remember seeing that I am trying to get to see if I can, that allowed it to run under OS 9, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, it's on the ease of use distribution. And by the way, the answer to your question is Rick Adams. He's in the call. He's on the top of the screen.
Ah, okay. So the ease of use distribution has that patch available in it?
Yes, it also has alternate tile sets and all kinds of other stuff from the menu.
Mm-hmm. I'd like to get. Yeah, I'd like to know where I could just get that patch to put it on my my OS 9 distribution.
It was Bill Noble that did that, I think.
Bill Noble and a few people worked on that. Yeah.
And yeah.
I would say reach out to either Bill or Curtis, or I'm sure other people have it too.
Curtis I think Curtis may have been involved, but definitely Bill Noble was involved.
Okay, because I've been asking around for it, and I haven't been able to find a copy of it yet. I actually have the cartridge, but I can't find the patch or the OS 9 version of it anywhere.
I was actually kind of disappointed to learn that Bill Noble had to patch it for to make it more position independent for OS 9. I thought that the whole thing was position independent to begin with, but apparently there was something I missed. So a little disappointment for me there. It was supposed to be easy.
And I think it was from the time he spoke about it. Yeah.
Yeah.
There actually is a trick in OS 9 level 2. Oftentimes you can run position dependent code because of a quirk in OS 9 level 2 and the way that it normally allocates the memory space. Mm-hmm. So if you have your program allocate a large amount of memory, it will allocate almost all of the 64K. And then it pretty much, you know what address it's going to load into.
By the way, we'll want to be careful about some of this technical discussion here because we don't, I was doing very careful during my assembly language lesson not to move Stevie up on the DEF CON, but he's on a trigger level. We can, hey, David, go for it.
I just want to know who is breathing into the microphone right now. So whoever you are, just stop breathing.
It's creepy. Stop it.
Yes.
It's not me. I have my microphone muted when I'm not speaking.
Okay, Bruce. Bruce, and I'm sorry. Bruce, you're saying you have a file you want me to show?
Yeah, I just dropped it into the chat. Have you got access to that?
I'm looking. Is it the PDF file?
Yeah.
Okay. Let me see, and then let me see how it opens. Okay, and so you want me to go ahead and show this off?
Yeah. It was just related to Steve Bjork's comments on the MC10 and what might have happened to the Coco 3.
Okay. So here's the rainbow from September 1983. The rainbow, just for your color computer, Color Deluxe in Coco Cubed. Ooh. So, EOS, Coco 3 EOS. That looks, wow, look at this. And it's just busting through the cover here, huh? Coco 3 EOS. 6809/68,000 sprites and a sound chip. So this is what we might have gotten, huh? We might have gotten a Coco Cubed. Is this something that appears in Coco Forever?
It does, yes.
Okay.
It's an alternate timeline, yeah.
In an alternate timeline, we might actually have a Color Deluxe or a Coco Cubed.
Yeah, the Coco 3, yeah.
And the EOS. Wow.
Notice the built-in hard drive, graphical user interface,
So the /DD and D0 and D1, is that the hard drives there?
Oh, there's a floppy on the front. You can see it.
Yeah.
Notice it's from RSK Corporation.
Yeah, that's what Dick Adams is president of, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Thank you. You too, guys.
RSK.
The only thing is, it would have had a detachable keyboard because only back then real computers had detachable keyboards.
Yeah, it's true.
Well, the Amiga was kind of. Did later on Amigas have detachable keyboards too?
The first one did.
Yeah.
The first one did. It was the 500 that was one unit. It was the answer for the schools because schools like computers that were all in one, like the Model 3. And like that. But No, it's just businesses, they like detachable keyboards. And of course, they found out later detachable keyboards affected whether or not you're going to get your wrists messed up. You know, with
like carpal tunnel or whatever.
Exactly.
Carpal tunnel. Yeah.
Yeah. Could you remember? I mean, not only in the early days did I kind of mess up my wrists, but I also messed up my head because I was crunched over looking down at the monitor. The monitor wasn't up at eye level. So the head's always bound down like this. And I basically could not move my head more than this amount, a few degrees left and right. I couldn't turn it all the way over.
Yeah, the concept of ergonomics had not been invented yet.
Right.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I see you, like me, also wear glasses. That's one of what the old CRT monitors had X-rays and gamma rays coming right off the front of the screen, and they found that has a bad effect on the lens of your eyes. So
that might have been what made me go blind at a young age. So that's my. I'm
in-
blaming it on the screens and not pornography.
In the case of me wearing reading glasses, that's simply just getting older and having diabetes.
Oh, that sucks.
All right, well, we're going on 2 hours now, so I think we should take another moment for a commercial break here. And we're going to pause for the cause here and hear from our corporate sponsors, and then we'll play more catch up, and we got some news to cover, as well as seeing what's new in Tandy Assembly, what's developing there. So hold on to whatever you got to hold on to, and we'll be back here in just a few minutes, folks.
Hi, I'm Bruce Moore, and this is Jacob Moore, gotcha. And we are the Forest of Doom guys, and the Cocoa Forever guys, and we're at Cocoa Fest, and we love Stevie Strobe.
Switcheroo. Use your Coco with a modern display. Go from RGB to composite with just the flip of a switch. CoCo3ScartCable.com.
What's going on, everybody? The original gamer Stevie Stroh here, and I want to talk to you about I'mACoconut.com. If you love the color computer like I love the color computer, then you got to visit I'mACoconut.com, your one-stop shop for all of your Tandy Color Computer links needs. There you'll find links to blogs and podcasts and project sites and emulators and downloads and groups and communities. If you love the color computer, head on over to I'mACoconut.com. That's IMACoconut.com. Tell them the original gamer Stevie Stroh sent you. Coco forever, people.
G'day, mates. This is Nick Marionettes, author of such color computer titles as Donut Disaster, Rupert Rhymes, and Rockstar Pilot. And I am here today to tell you about the world's most fabulous operating system, OS 9. OS 9 and its current incarnation, Nitrous 9, is the most advanced operating system ever created. And what makes it so good? Ease of use. I find OS 9 so incredibly intuitive that I haven't once cracked open the user manual, and yet I've been able to create such incredible games faster than the time it takes to sing Waltzing Matilda. Using OS 9, I expect my next game, Funstar, will be done this weekend and distributed exclusively on ROM cartridge. OS 9 forever.
Any resemblance to actual events to persons living or dead is purely coincidental.
Some people have big plans after school. You know what Elliot's going to do? Jeff, too. Elliot's at work on a book report using Scripsit on Radio Shack's Color Computer 3. It hooks up to his TV. And Jeff's at his Radio Shack Color Computer 3 playing the newest football game. But wait, what's Elliot doing playing new Super Pitfall? And Jeff's having a blast with a new math tutor. You never know what you might try with more than 100 programs for fun and learning. Radio Shack's Color Computer 3 comes with everything you see here. Other items each sold separately. Only at Radio Shack.
We now return you to CoCoTALK.
Thank you, Speech Sound Pack. Thank you. You're too kind. Thank you. All right. So we're back. And Barry, were you saying something during the break or trying to?
I thought I caught the end, but then it started another commercial. But yeah, I was just going to say the ironic part of that Nick Parenti's spoof ad there is that OS 9 actually is ROMable, and you can actually put stuff for OS 9 in a ROM.
There you go. There you have it. And I think your parrot would agree with you on that one. So, excellent. Bruce Moore, anything new and exciting going on with you other than a nice little updated profile picture there?
I'm just continue to expand my assembly language programming skills, and I'm experimenting, working on a project and making some progress, getting a lot of help from the community. It's been wonderful going onto the Discord and saying, hey, what about this or what about that? And I was asking about code compression, and a couple people chimed in, and then I think Karen, is that the
Karen, yep. XROAR guy, yep.
Yeah, check out this magazine article. It's got sure enough, there was the code that I needed. I never would have found it otherwise. So this is pretty cool.
Excellent. And then Paul Fiscarelli, I'm almost done going through your environment setup. I'm about 80% there. I've got almost all the tools extracted into folders on my desktop. I haven't gotten to the batch file part of it yet, okay, but almost there. Any updates on your project, Mr. Paul?
Hey, Steve, how's it going? So basically I was working this morning trying to get another episode posted for finally writing first assembly code for Long Branch Never. Ran into an issue with my VM, and it started going and doing updates about 2/3 of the way through the episode. But luckily, I was doing it in batches, so everything that I have worked on so far, I can continue off of, and I'll just probably have that posted this evening. I've been working on updates to my floppy disk tools, the utility that I've shown on the show before, and debugging that. It seems like every time I fix one bug, I discover two more. So that's a little slow going, but my real goal behind that is getting that ready for Tandy assembly. So when I get out there, I'll have something that I can share with folks and actually, have it in folks' hands so that they can play around with it and start using it.
That's an awesome mug, by the way.
Oh, well, thank you very much.
You're referring to his face, or are you referring to the drinking beverage?
Yeah.
The coffee mug. Oh, yeah. I got that playing this pretty awesome retro game called Forest of Doom. I highly recommend it.
Shameful plug right there, huh?
So, and other than that, just getting ready for Tandy assembly, trying to pull a few things together. I have a table and everything, so I just want to try to decorate that a little bit and have something to show off. So
nice. Yeah, I started watching the video last week on Sunday, but I had like real work stuff to do, which ended up taking the whole day. This week has been kind of crazy, and then this morning I actually had to rebuild my broadcast setup that we're doing now for the show because I switched my Google Drive accounts and stuff, so I had to reassemble all of this. And then literally the last 20 minutes before the show, I'm going through your video. I got as far as getting Notepad++ installed. I got the language descriptor installed. I went through all your color tweaks and font tweaks. I got the LW ASMs in there, the tool sheds in there. I got your batch file in there. I went as far as making the two folders for the Coco assembly and the Coco disks, and I'm fairly far along. The only thing I haven't figured out yet is now how to connect all the dots. But I'm about 80% through the video. So I'm hoping to have that up and running very shortly. So far, I've been able to follow it step by step. So it's been very followable, if that's a word.
Well, the as far as putting it all together, the assembdap bat file is what's really going to bring everything together and make it gel.
Right.
And it's funny, Steve, because about a year or so ago, I forget the individual's name. I think last name possibly Searle.
Jason Lee Searle.
Yeah, okay, it sounds familiar.
Yeah.
That's where I had first picked up the pieces on how to do it. And he had a very basic assem.bat file. And I took that and I just started really building off of it and making it more customized to take in all the various components and the tools and the emulators and just kind of bring everything together so it would be extremely easy for a beginner to just start using it. So that's where I left it. And hopefully once you get that piece in place, everything will click. And if you left everything default, you should be pretty much up and running at that point.
Right. Actually, what I'm going to probably do once I see how the pieces connect, I'm probably going to modify it slightly because my development environment has lived in my Google Drive, and I want to move it to there. And so I'm just going to change the paths a little bit once I see how everything works. I'm right now following your course to get it set up, and once I see how it works, I'll just modify the paths to.
Yep, absolutely. And there's actually a delineation line in the asm.bat file that says no need to edit below this line. All you need to really do is update your paths above that line. There's just a couple lines there.
Yeah.
And if you leave everything else default, it should just work.
Cool. Yeah.
I gotta drop off of here, but before
All right,
I go,
Barry.
I've got somebody else here that I'm gonna have them say hello really quick. Leanne, say hello. That's Leanne, my daughter. She's the one who wrote some of the assembly code and the menu program for the Coco Flash cartridge.
Well, we need some updates to that, Barry.
Yeah, I know. It basically it functions. There's been some other people that have been doing updates and whatnot to it. So, but yeah, I need to throw some of them and put them and fold them in at some point into the code. But anyway.
Excellent. Hi, Leanne.
Guys, I'll
Okay.
hopefully see you on the next call. And Leanne, say goodbye.
And goodbye to the parrot too. Cool. Yeah, so I'm almost there, Paul, and I'm looking forward to having that component because I want to start assembling, and I know the series that Steve Bjork's doing, we're going to start doing code samples soon. So. Now, just so you know, too, and I appreciate everything you're doing, and at the end of the day, we need to have a process, and I believe everybody's kind of got their own process, and that's fine, but it's nice to have at least one that's documented, and at least your video is documenting a way to set up an environment, which is great. Something else that Ron Klein was doing, which he showed me, and I don't know where he's left off with this, but Ron Klein was using a text editor called Atom, A-T-O-M. Are you familiar with that one at all?
I haven't heard of that. No, I haven't.
Yeah. So Atom is it's like a Notepad++, and it's also cross-platform. It also lets you plug in your own different languages. And I think the one nice thing that Atom has is the ability to create custom menus, where you can just do a pull-down menu. So he's basically created all these different scripts that are the equivalent of your batch file, but would pull it down from a menu. So once you've got your source code on screen, you can just pull down from a drop-down menu and say, either make an OS 9 disk or make a disk or RS-DOS disk or do this or do that. And you just pull from a menu, and then all of the stuff is built into the script in that drop-down menu, and it just assembles it and makes the disk image and launches the emulator all and just pull down and click type stuff. So, and he has that running flawlessly on the Coco Pi. And he was working on a way to convert his shell scripts to batch files so they would work on Windows too. And so that's another solution. But again, it's like a lot of people have their environments that they use. And some of them are it's not necessarily like it's a trade secret, but it's just, hey, this is me. I set my thing up. I'm doing it my way. But you've got one that you're putting out there, right? And so and I'm going to follow yours for right now, and Steve Bjork wants to follow yours. And so as we move forward with our assembly series and we start showing the source code and we start assembling and demoing the source code, it'll be based on your Notepad++ environment on your Long Branch Never series, because that's just going to be our method for the time being.
Oh, yeah, that's cool. And, thanks for the nod. And, I appreciate you guys taking a look at it and thinking about even using it for working into your series. So again, one of the reasons why I was doing this was trying to do it from the point of view of a beginner that's never done it before. What steps would you go through?
Mm-hmm.
So Notepad++ does have the ability, there's actually a run button, and you can actually set up scripts where you can have a drop down menu and do, I would imagine, the same thing. I'd have to take a look at Atom to see exactly what it's doing.
Mm-hmm.
The reason why I have mine set up the way it is because it gives you the ability to see the code actually compile in the command window. And it actually, you'll see in the next episode that comes up tonight, a couple things. One, I go through and I show you the output and talk about the machine code and how the assembly is converted to machine code and all the steps that go through. So there's that aspect of it, but it also gives you additional steps for debugging. Whereas if you have shortcuts right now, it would make it hard to actually follow along what's going on. So maybe at some point it'd probably be worthwhile to do that, or even incorporate.
I see what you're saying. Yeah. Yep. No, that makes sense.
One other thing that's going to be included as part of the new episode that posts tonight, Stevie, is I've got a template that's going to be up there for you to download that you can actually just start working on the assembly code and get up and running that much quicker.
Excellent. All right. Rick Adams, you got anything you want to update us to that you've been working on lately?
Well, I haven't been working on anything lately because I've been on vacation.
Good for you.
Yep. We went down to Amish territory. Thought we were going to see the Amish, so we bombed into town. So town is known as having lots of Amish, and so we came into town and said, "Where's the Amish at?" We're like, "They're not there. They're up on their farms doing their Amish things. They're not, they're not coming up to town and talk to us filthy English." So we had sort of an uneventful vacation. We're back now. But I do have a sort of a retro talk item for you, if you're willing for that.
Sure.
Okay, I just want to show you. I just started. I found a simulation of the first computer that I ever worked with, which was a PDP-8i.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what it looks like. So it's got, it's like a movie computer. It's got all the blinking lights, it's got the switches, and all that sort of stuff going on. So that's a simulation of it, telling you, showing you, and that's like really authentic because that's actually what it looked like. I'm not sure how, in focus that is.
No, that's fine. I can see it.
Yep, it's got all the registers labeled and what they are and each of the bits, and if the bit is on more often than not, it's brighter. And if it's not on very often, it's kind of dim. And the bottom one that's scrolling back and forth like a Cylon, that's the accumulator, sort of the equivalent of the A register,
okay.
6809. And it was a common practice back then that you had an idle routine that when it wasn't doing anything else useful, it would throw some bits around in the accumulator and make it look like, a Cylon like that.
Yeah.
So there's all kinds of sometimes it would like count up in binary or whatever. So when you came in the morning and you turned it on and you put in a little bootstrap routine using the switches, and over here on the left, they would have the bootstrap routine in octal, and you would just read that off and you'd put that in the switches and put them in word by word, and then you'd set it to the starting address, and then you'd hit the start button, and then you'd boot your computer for the day. So one of my first computer job was being a system administrator with this kind of a computer in a big, huge cabinet in the corner of the room, and 4 ASR 33 teletypes, very noisy things, and it was for a junior college math department. So I'm real excited. This is the first time I've seen this site in 46 years. So I'm real excited.
That's cool. Now that's an emulator running on a PC?
It's running on a Raspberry Pi.
Okay.
And the Raspberry Pi is barely keeping up. It's giving me a little over temperature warning in the corner of the window. So that's my...
Nick Marotta wants to know, is there a paper tape output for it?
There's a paper tape input for it, but it just comes from a file, not from an actual paper tape.
Okay. That's kind of cool.
Yeah.
Hey, Rick, whoever came up with that emulator did an excellent job coming up with the image that comes up on the monitor. That, if you didn't see you moving the camera over, I thought you were looking at a real PDP there.
Yeah.
I mean, a beautiful job.
It's amazing. It just warms my heart to see that because it's like, yeah, that's exactly what it was like. It's not fake to me. I'm even right here, and I look over and it's like, oh, here's a PDP-8i. What? So, and the guy that did it has a write-up on how he took pictures of an actual PDP-8 and the lights in various conditions and processed them just right and made them look realistic that way.
Wow.
Figured out the color temperature of the lights and all kinds of crazy stuff like that. So,
what size was that machine when they made it? Was it bigger than the monitor?
oh yeah, it was about the size. It was the size of a very large refrigerator.
Oh,
and
Just the panel was about the size of a room air conditioner.
That's about right. Yeah.
Like on one of those window shakers.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, like, that's a PDP-11. I worked on a PDP-8, which was an earlier machine, and I do have a fondness for it because I actually crawled around inside that machine looking for bad chips, because that's what they did at the university, is that they taught you how to fix these machines by pulling out a good chip and putting a bad chip in there, and you had to sit there and do all the diagnostics to figure out first how it wasn't working right, and then what would cause it.
Mm-hmm.
And like that. But there was something I saw on the Facebook posting or maybe it was somewhere else, when Rick posted information about this machine. They go, why would anybody have nostalgia for something that they didn't own? Well, we may not have owned it, but it was the first machine we worked on.
Yeah.
True. Yeah.
And this is back when you didn't have machines at home.
Yep.
This is right before that period.
Yeah, my first machine I worked on was an IBM 360, and that took up an entire room.
Mm-hmm.
So Nick Morotas pointed out that was the computer that was used in the Bat Cave.
Oh.
And they wanted to know if that was able to answer the Riddler's questions. I guess the Batman had used a computer like that to crack some of the Riddler's riddles or something. So.
And one more thing, just to show you the way the technology was back then, notice when Rick was showing the machine, they had the set of instructions that you had to manually put in the machine.
Mm-hmm.
That's because technically there was no ROMs inside there. There was nothing to boot up of code. The machine came up and just sat there going, huh. It did nothing. It just sit there and stare at you. It's like a Coco that doesn't boot up.
Yeah.
You had to put in the code that told it to do something, such as load in more code from somewhere else.
Wow.
So there's about 20 instructions there that you toggle into the switches by hand, and the really cool guys would memorize it, and then they would show off. They'd come in and they'd lean on the front panel with their hand in such a way that it blocked the written out instructions, and they'd toggle it in with their other hand just to show off.
Mm-hmm.
I never laughed as hard as this one guy that was showing off, and he couldn't get it right.
James Jones is asking, do they have the FOCAL available to run on the emulator? FOCAL.
They do.
Okay, what is that?
A Focal. It was
Focal.
a programming language, FOCAL.
Okay.
I think it was formula calculation, I think was the acronym. But it was a digital PDP. It was some sort of a programming language, I think.
Okay.
But they do have Focal on that.
Yeah.
So
Very
I run
cool.
it now on a PC, like on my laptop, and then I just now figured out how to get it to run on my Raspberry Pi.
Neat.
Although I'm
Neat.
going to have to wait until I get my Raspberry Pi 3B Plus back, because this one is working. It's on a Raspberry Pi 3 right now, and it's working it so hard that I'm getting an over temperature warning.
Wow.
Yeah. And there was a guy years ago came out with I'm not sure if it was a PDP-8 or PDP-11, but it was the actual panel, the physical unit. So you had the switches, you had everything just like that. And Mr. Steve Gibson bought 3 of them. So when he does this podcast, all 3 of them are back behind him, just running those little patterns that you see there. So there is as much interest in retro mainframes as there is in retro microcomputers.
Oh yeah.
Hey, Rick.
I still have the key from the original PDP-8i that I originally programmed on. I have the actual key for it. There were several keys, and when I left work there, somehow I ended up with an extra key. Well, the extra key. So now I have it as a memento now. So somebody was going to ask me something.
Oh yeah, Bruce here. Rick, I was just, with your heating problem, I think you have a solution for that from your Cocoa days, do you not? Do you have
A can of Freon?
Can of Freon nearby? Or blow on it really hard, I guess.
Yeah.
Good stuff. Yeah. No, I think all of us here, you're preaching to the choir when it comes to being nostalgic for some vintage piece of tech that, is from your youth. For me, my first computer was the Coco. But yeah, I would be just as nostalgic for anything else. So that's pretty cool. It's like you never forget your first love, right? And if that was your first love, it's going to be with you.
Hey, Rick, you remember the term for those oversized computers back in the day? Big irons.
Big iron.
What's Paul got?
Sometimes called boat anchor
Yep.
or heaters.
Heaters.
Another term I heard was coffin, because they were about the size where you could crawl in and die.
Oh, yeah.
What do you got there, Paulie?
So, Steve, is this the display that you were talking about?
Yep.
That's
That
the
looks like a
the
PDP-8i.
kit.
Yeah, that's Oscar's kit. It's
Oh, yeah.
It works with Raspberry Pi, and I got it about a year ago, and it's one of those on my to-do list. So I haven't quite gotten to it yet, but definitely looking forward to putting this thing together.
Yeah, don't buy too many of these retro projects that you forget to put together, okay?
Yeah, I know. They're just piling up.
If I had a couple $100, I would get one of those. But the guy that makes those, he's out of the switches right now. So he says he's going to have more in November. So, but I don't happen to have a spare couple of $100 lying around. So, but I've got this thing right here, and I'm pretty happy with that.
Just crank out a new game.
Yeah, crank out a new game, man.
There you go. Get that game money.
The original PDP-8i that I had in the math department of that junior college, or a community college, as they sometimes call it, they moved that. After I left, they moved it from one building to another. And when they moved it, it never worked again. So I don't know what happened to it, but it probably just got junked.
Well, see, all these computer rooms, they were built on a false floor in a lot of cases, so they could run all the cables and like that. And the other thing that they also had in those false floors, the air conditioning.
Yes.
Yeah.
I know the IBM mainframe cabinets, they're all designed for airflow through the bottom. So
it's just computer centers back in the day were definitely interesting creatures and like that.
There was nothing energy efficient about the machines or the technology used to cool them. Because if you think about pumping cold air through the floor, and you know that cold air falls to begin with because it's heavy. So you got to blow it up as hard as you can so it can hopefully reach the top of your rack. It didn't make any sense.
Hey, Steve.
Actually, the heat's going to rise, so it just basically displaces the hot air.
Oh, okay. There you go.
Hey, Steve, do you remember?
Go ahead.
Do you remember if they had TTL in those things, or was it discrete transistors?
It was TTL.
Okay.
In the PDP's systems, definitely. Now, in the case of the IBM 360, that was transistors for the most part.
Right. When I say TTL, I mean little chips.
Yeah.
Little black chips.
Yep. They didn't even have low power Schottky yet. They were TTL.
Right. So one computer chip would be, like 4 NAND gates or something like that, or a flip-flop, a couple of flip-flops per chip, as opposed to nowadays you have a chip which is the complete CPU. So in those days, one chip was a little tiny fragment of the CPU, and you'd have a whole bunch of them, and then together those would be the CPU.
Wow.
So that's what we mean when we say TTL.
Wow.
Now, one project that I was given at the university along with the team was to find out why at the medical university area, they kept having loss of data. Now, back in those days, stuff wasn't stored on hard drives or whatever. They were stored on these big, huge magnetic tapes, almost the size of a film canister. And they had a problem. That the tapes were coming up bad. So we were going through the computer. We were trying to find, where in the computer it would mess up writing information in the tape, because that's obviously where the information went bad, is once it went to the tape, it would kind of get messed up. And one day I came in late working on the project, and I walked through the room where the tapes were stored, and a man was going through and buffing the floor. Now, these buffers have big, huge motors on them.
Sure.
Motors make magnetic energy.
Mm-hmm.
And he was buffing right by the tapes on the bottom.
Oh my God.
He was erasing the tapes, even though they
Bulk
were in
erasing.
metal canisters.
Wow.
Bulk
So
erasing bottom row. Yeah, great.
he was, because we had started to notice it wasn't all tapes, and it wasn't necessarily on a particular day. And we're going nuts trying to find what was causing the problem. And it turned out it was the janitor at the end of the month was erasing the tapes on the bottom row.
Wow.
Did
And
that
now
for free.
I'm hitting switches on the front panel, and I'm single stepping through the program.
Wow.
The only thing missing in that demo is your hand.
Yes.
Flipping the switch.
I wish.
Yep.
I think you need a touch screen.
Yeah.
Yes. That would be awesome.
Mhm. God, he did a great job on that emulation.
Yeah, that's cool.
Isn't that great?
Yeah.
Good stuff. Good stuff. David Ladd, anybody else, or David or anyone else got anything they want to update us on what's going on this week with them? Then maybe we'll take another quick break and we'll get into news. David Ladd going once. So there's his MC10.
Well,
There's Jason's.
I found it. I found the MC10.
Go ahead, David.
No, I don't really have anything, important to cover. I still have, those ideas I want to try out yet, but I just have to get around to having the time.
Let's hear some of those ideas about how to take a high density floppy and use it as single density. I just want to see Stevie's mind go boom.
I've already heard it.
Yeah, he's heard it, but after I was describing it, James told me that the method that I was talking about is what the I believe it's the Atari or the Amiga, their floppies would go into half speed for doing the high density discs. So basically, I could probably cheat and just try to find a ready to go floppy drive from one of those machines.
Yeah, this is almost like, why would you want to run a DOS-based emulator in a DOS emulator type of questions here? Why do we want to worry about making a high-density floppy for a system that nobody uses floppies anymore? But because retro, right? Because we can.
Why are you going to make a gorilla wear a gorilla suit?
Well,
it's just too metro for me.
Well, there's also I've got a whole 3.5-inch floppy box that was for my Coco, and there's probably a good 100 3.5-inch high density floppies that are for the Coco.
You've got media you need to read.
Well, yeah, I'd like to see what's on it. So
this isn't even a hypothetical. This is really this is going to become a practical application for you.
It's a recovery operation.
Yeah, and
okay. Well,
for me, if I can find a floppy drive that can do the job, so I don't have to modify a floppy controller, that makes my life easier. But if I have to modify a floppy controller again, the mod to make a standard either 3022 or 3029 high density enabled is a pain in the rump. So it's just...
Hey, David, is there any way to use like Linux on an older system and use like raw write or raw read to, pull the image off?
There's some features that I guess that were available that you could give certain information, but again, a lot of my floppies were, let's just say, they had extra sectors on them. So most people would assume, like, the standard Coco floppies would be 18 sectors. So high density would be, 36? And I would be pushing, 20 on the double densities and 40 on the high densities. So
pushing limits. David Ladd's always pushing limits. All right. Okay. Well, that makes sense. So you've got some high density plus floppies. You've got bonus sectors and you got disks you need to read. And so this is something you got to do to get that done. And it's an interesting project.
Well, and plus for those people that like using the original hardware as well, we were using regular PC floppy drives on the CoCo, even though that later some of those you had to do slight modifications to use them on the CoCo. But, like for me, if I would have known that, those floppies from those Ataris or Amigas, whichever machine it was, had the ability, hell, I would have probably bought a couple of those brand new floppy drives from that company to use on the CoCo.
Right. Gotcha. All right. Well, I think it's a good time to take a break, and then we got some news items to cover. We got a handful of things to cover in news. We haven't covered news in probably a couple of weeks now, so we're not going to give you many weeks worth of news, but we'll give you a few things that have been going on this week. So we'll take another break, and we'll be back in just a little bit as we enter the going on 3-hour mark for today's episode. It's a jam-packed show today, boys and girls.
Hi, I'm Kieran Anscombe, author of XRAW, and your brain is resolving sensory input into CoCoTALK.
What's going on, everybody? Stevie Stroh, and I want to say thank you for continuing to watch and listen to CoCoTALK.
Damn it,
we love
stop
doing the show.
me.
We think we put together a pretty good show for you, but this show could be better with your help. So if you would like to send a feedback, a comment, a suggestion,
That
a
is
show
so out of
topic, or maybe
context.
even your own little segment or bumper, then send it to us via email to cocotalk@cocotalk.live. This show would be nothing without you. Love to hear
This
from
whole
you.
show is out of context.
This is appropriate timing.
Don't eat my pants.
Floppy Life, the David Ladd story. This summer, straight to YouTube.
It's a Radio Shack Merry Christmas.
Oh, I remember that Christmas. Dad gave me my first shortwave radio from Radio Shack. What memories. This Christmas, we got our son's Color Computer 3 from Radio Shack. It hooks right up to our TV and was on sale for less than $130. The Color Computer 3 makes learning fun. Jimmy even lets me use it for word process when he isn't playing computer games. Lucky I still got my shortwave.
Save $70 on the sale-priced Color Computer 3, only at Radio Shack.
We now return you to CoCoTALK.
Hey, wasn't that Shanghai on that ad?
It certainly was. All right. And we're here, and we are in the news segment of the show, boys and girls.
Rock on!
Yes. So we got a couple of things that have come up this week that I've been aware of, and a few people have posted things in Discord as well. So last week on the show, we had Carlos Camacho on the program. As you know, Carlos is mostly known for the Color Computer store and all the refurbs that he does and his cool paint jobs. But he also mentioned that he had been working on a project of converting sprites and tiles and images to work with the 16-bit RGB palette of the Coco 3. So he's posted, I guess, some examples of that on Facebook. And so, for example, here's some tiles, I guess, that he's extracted from the arcade game 1943. This looks like a bunch of stuff from Galaga, which looks pretty good here. Here's a whole bunch of, this looks like maybe some wizardry type game here with all kinds of weird kind of fantasy RPG type stuff. Got different beasts and monsters and characters. Wow, this is an incredibly large tile set. I'm not even sure what half of this stuff here is, but it looks like we've got portals and Lord knows what he's got going on there.
Looks like an arcade machine that crashed.
Yeah, right. Yeah. So, just oogles and oogles of images of some stuff. So I guess he's been running a couple of utilities to take things he had designed in the past and then possibly just converted them over to the 16-bit palette for the Coco 3. And so I know, we've seen Hugo DeFort doing something similar to this with some of the graphics he's designing for his game. So here's a couple of things that Carlos was throwing up on Facebook. And Richard's not with us this week. I wonder where Richard is. But another thing that we saw this week is Richard Lorbieski of Boyson Technologies was just showing off some of his mad soldering skills and cleaning skills. So we start with a normal Coco 3 motherboard, and then he starts to strip it apart, starts to take all the chips out. He actually starts to desolder all of the sockets, and then he does some type of sonic pressure cleaning where he cleans off the boards. And now we can see really clean on the top and the bottom here. And I mean, these are where I think chips used to go, or where he's going to socket chips. But if you see how clean that is, that's just really nice. This is like a showroom finish motherboard there. So yeah, that's where the gimp.
Brand new when you're first getting them to populate them.
Yeah, that looks like the gimme socket right there, huh?
Yep.
Yeah. So I mean, he has stripped down this motherboard where there is just nothing on it, and you can just see there's no flux or rosin or any of that stuff that's usually left over on motherboards when you desolder things. So super duper clean. That's probably the bottom of the 68 or 6309 right there for a socket, right? So man, it's just so clean. I mean, this is like solder porn. If you're into seeing solder, this is the goods right here. So the point being that, if you need some work done, and for me, this is not what I do. This is nowhere near my wheelhouse. So if I had some work I needed done, I would probably send it to Richard Lorbieski at Boyson Technologies to have things. As a matter of fact, I am going to do one. I'm going to have him clean up my TDP 100 and socket the VDG for me, so I can make it easy for Brendan to put a Coco VGA in it at Tandy Assembly, assuming I can go. All right, so really neat little project there. So that's kind of cool. If Richard was here, he probably could have told us in more detail, but if nothing else here, we can just oogle over how clean and pretty that looks, huh?
If I can add one comment, I've been soldering for over 50 years. I've done my fair share of soldering and like that, but Richard is an absolute pro at this thing. And even if you think you're pretty good at soldering and desoldering, in my case, I'm thinking if I have to remove a 6809 on my board, I'm going to send it off to Richard because I know it'll get done right. If I try and do it, I'm not so sure of that fact.
Right. Well, there you go. You can't get a better testimonial than that, huh?
Mm-hmm. And I'd like to add to that. I had a motherboard recapped and stuff from Richard, and he did the ultrasonic cleaning to it, and he also socketed my PROM, so that way I could put in a EEPROM to replace the basic in the Coco 3. But yeah, that board was so spick and span. It was like the motherboard just came off the factory line.
Yeah. The only problem I've got with Richard's stuff is he doesn't charge enough for it. I'm concerned that
Yeah,
he's
he
not
should be
making enough money. He's really inexpensive for the work he does.
I wonder about that too.
Yeah.
Well, not only that, but when it comes to like his latest memory boards, he has been redesigning them as he goes, and anybody who's bought one ends up getting like 3 of them for free. So it's like anybody who bought the 512 board got a free upgrade to the 2 meg board. And then anybody who bought the first round 2 meg board, well, he's tweaked that and he's got a better 2 meg board. So he's going to be sending everybody who bought the first Boomerang E2 a new one. So as he refines them, he's giving everybody the latest, greatest version of the hardware, which is great customer service, but it's bad for profit margins.
Yeah. And the other thing too is we're not talking about the old version was bad. It's just keeps improving it.
Yeah.
Unlike some other people out there in the Coke community, you bought something that had a bug or a problem, they just said, well, my hands are washed. You're stuck with it. So he's just a shining star when it comes to all this. So he's inexpensive, does an incredibly great job, and really stands behind his work.
There you have it. Richard Lorbieski, we are singing your praise. We speak your names. All right. So I thought I would share this. We're not necessarily a marketplace type show, but for somebody who's in the market to get a floppy, this was relatively new posting from Mike Soak on the Facebook group, but he's got an FD502, apparently new in box. And so again, if you're into retro porn, this is the good stuff here. So this, you can ooh and ah over this one. It's still sealed in the plastic. It's got all the styrofoam protection. Look at that controller, David. Does that get your blood pumping? Look at that.
The FD502. Oh, geez. I might just have to contact him now. It's getting me all woozy. I wonder how supple that plastic still is.
Oh, yeah. So look at this. Still sealed. Still got that new floppy smell. Look at that. He's got some computer paper, too. So if anybody's looking to print out some fan fold stuff there. So I thought that was kind of cool. So somebody in the market for a physical floppy drive and you want to find specimen there, you might want to reach out to Mike Zoke. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing his name properly on the Facebook group. Now, it wouldn't be a week of news without seeing what has Ed Snyder done lately, right? And so, as you know, Ed Snyder has been working on a Coco 3 keyboard replacement with new keycaps, mechanical key switches, laser etch keys. Some of the earlier pictures, these things kind of look like pieces of chiclet gum or something like that because they were just kind of plain. But a little further through, look at that. He's got a Boomerang memory board in there too. How do you like those apples, huh? So as we go through here, and you can see how nice and clean that is, we finally get to the part where he's showing us the laser etching on the keys now. And so here you can actually see the letters on the keys. Now, I'm not sure if this is going to be the final look, like if these will be darker or not, because they kind of look like they're engraved, but not necessarily dyed or inked or anything, you know. But you can definitely read the letters, and they look clean and they look good. And as a matter of fact, look at that. He's got the raised the home keys, and I don't think the real Coco had a little depressed thing there for the home keys, so you knew you were on your F and J. As a matter of fact, I'm looking at my Coco 3 right now, and I don't see that. So that's actually a nice little modern feature there where you can do touch typing where you know if you're on your home keys, your F and J right there. I just actually noticed that. So that looks pretty cool. It looks like the brake key has not been etched, but it kind of doesn't need to be. It's red. It's off to the side. You know what it's there for. Here you can see the ribbon cable connection for it. I guess it's got like a little board that goes in place there.
That's the deluxe Coco color. Black.
Yeah. So I guess he would have the ability to create these keys in different colors too. Yeah, backlit version of this would be really cool, right? Another thing Ed Snyder has revealed to us now is that not only is he making products, but he now has the ability to 3D print. And since he's making so much product, this is probably going to streamline and, you know, if you want to order a Coco SDC with case, you can now order it straight from Ed and not have to order the the board from Ed and the case from John Strong, or whatever the case may be, or at least you've got options now, right? So John
Whatever
Strong's
the
still
case
making
may
cases.
be.
Whatever the
Very good.
Hey, Ron's on fire today.
Yep.
So he's got a Coco SDC case there. It's here we can see his actual 3D printer. That looks pretty good, huh? So this must be the top-down view looking into it. And yeah, it's kind of neat. I don't know. I always think the whole idea of 3D printing takes me back to the days of going to the zoo and having the wax pressing of the gorilla come out of the machine, where these two things come together and the wax gets pushed in and it pops it down. That's what I always think about. So yeah, Ed Snyder's now doing 3D printing. So, you know, who knows what to expect from Ed Snyder next, you know? Which is the zipsterzone.com, right? ZIPPSTER zone.com.
We're expecting an actual Coco 4.
Yeah. Chad's asking, where's the any key? Can engrave that on the space bar. Any.
Yeah,
right?
you do that for extra.
Right. So,
You know, with that 3D printer, at one time I thought it would be cool to build a CNC machine and just use, because you can get blocks of plastic and wood and stuff like that. And I thought it'd be cool to do the reverse. Instead of you build up the plastic, you just use the CNC to remove it to build your products that you want.
Okay.
It's a
If
negative
that makes sense.
Negative process rather than a positive process. So 3D printing, you're adding material till you get what you want, and it's CNC machine, you remove what you don't want.
Mm-hmm. Okay, well, that's above my pay grade. So
it's like sculpting. You get a block of rock and you cut off the pieces till you get what you want, right, David?
Yeah,
exactly.
That I can follow. Okay,
Stevie, do we need to talk about ESPs and DriveWire now?
Yes, please. Yes, please. So, if you guys recall, Thomas Cherryholmes was on our show a month or so back, and he talked about the Errata Online project and Plato, right? So he is now saying, would you like me to help make this better? I could use some help with making terminal implementations better. So I need some coders on the terminal. I need to make programs for the system. So he needs authors to add content to Plato. Discovering the darkest corners of the system, some archaeologists and historians, and website maintenance, updating release information for the terminals, and etc. Writing guides to connect your vintage computers to Errata Online, telling people about the system, administering the system, and if you would like to help in any of these areas, please contact Thomas Cherryholmes. He does post, and they're making a lot of progress in getting a lot more terminals for a lot more systems. So they're getting some 16-bit support on the Atari ST and Amiga area. They're getting higher resolution graphics to support. There's some MS-DOS based terminal support. And so you can see here that VGA resolution, 640 by 480 by 16 color, looks really nice here. This Apple logo looks really super smooth even at VGA resolution. So yeah, Errata Online in the Plato system, just taking that further. And if you think about it, this is really kind of like the Holy Grail. If you want to have retro connectivity cross platforms, the infrastructure is in place and the protocols are out there, and all we need is a few terminals, and we could have cross-platform games and message boards and forums and all kinds of stuff. You can sit here and talk trash to your Apple friends through your Coco online. And this is like the old days of bulletin boards. So I'm glad to see this is still going on. And what he's asking for is really what I would like to have more of here too for CoCoTALK. He's asking for like a street team. He wants different people to take different pieces of this and go out and spread the gospel. You know, help me with this. I'm crowdsourcing different things. And so we kind of unofficially get that without asking, and sometimes we ask for it too. But yeah, I would love to have the same level of stuff going on for CoCoTALK. So on the one hand, we have people who create cool little commercials and segments for us, but I would love to have people share the show. Like I don't want to be that guy that shares out links to this on all the groups, because I've already gotten my hand slapped and I've hurt people's feelings apparently and stuff like that. So I'm very cautious about sharing and spamming, but I would love for the people who watch this show to spread the word, you know, and share it out on whatever. If you're on a forum, or if you're on a news group, or if you're in other retro groups that you think might like the show, I would love for other people to share that out and help us expand our universe as well. So I think that's what he's asking for, and I'm all in favor of that. So for those of you who like this project, help him out, right? You want to add to that, Mark Overholzer?
Well, I haven't spent much time on Irata recently, but I've been trying to focus on other things. But yeah, I mean, it's going to be like, like CompuServe and Delphi was back in the day, except, well, it's free. You already have an internet connection. So, there's terminals for all the basic platforms now. Help shake out the bugs, make suggestions, maybe even help code. And then you can start developing programs on Irata and bring the community together, all the communities.
Yeah. Yeah, instead of tearing them apart. All right. So that's cool. And so I'm glad to see a lot of progress has been making. Now, this is somewhat of a Coco project, right? But Sockmaster, who made Donkey Kong for the Coco and Donkey Kong Remix and stuff, and he made a holiday remix last year around the holiday times. There's now a Donkey Kong Remix spooky one. Now, I'm pretty sure this only runs in MAME. I think this is emulating the arcade hardware, so I don't think he's made necessarily a Coco 3 version of it. But so you can go to DonkeyKongForum.com and you'll find links to get Donkey Kong Remix and Donkey Kong Spooky Remix. And apparently there's a tournament for high scores where you can submit your score and possibly win a prize, the whole 9 yards, as long as your name is not Billy Mitchell. I think you're eligible for this one. So so check that out. And by the way, everything I've showed you so far, there are links to all of this in the description of this video, which means I will also get copy and pasted over to the podcast version of the show. Al Hartman's asking, did Ron Delvaux ever get his Coco Max multi-pack question answered?
Yeah, someone's mentioned that it was, in fact, a real thing. But there's the address thing that doesn't work with the new updated multi-pack.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
There you go. So it's a thing. And now you can see here by the little red progress bar, this is exactly how far I've gotten into Paul Fiscarelli's video. I'm 19 minutes and 26 seconds into the 32-minute video of his Long Branch Never. So I've been following his video step by step to create the development environment. There's also a link to this here too. So make sure you check out Long Branch Never on YouTube, and episode 1 is setting up your environment. I am almost there. So my plan was always to start my own little series on learning assembly and going through and making short videos as I learn it too. So this was a necessary step for me to be able to do that. I like the idea of us all being on the same page, where whatever Paul's using for his series is already been established and it's already been explained. We're going to use this for the Steve Bjork series. I'm going to use it for the Stevie Stroh series. So look for lots more assembly-based content in the near future, and we're going to be basing it off of the Notepad++ editor and LW tools and Toolshed and a few things like that. So good stuff. So I'm almost there. I'm looking forward to being able to write assembly code and assembling it and seeing it work in the very, very near future. So thanks for Paul for getting that started for us. This was my Tormod download of the LW tools. Okay. And then I came across this too. Here's a link to this in the description here too. But I was actually, and this is what I do sometimes. I like to test Google keywords and on how to find things. So when I post videos on YouTube, there's a lot of science that goes into making sure you can be discovered with your keyword searches. And like when I first started doing a search for CoCoTALK, when we first started the show, the only thing I got was Ice-T and Coco. Like Ice-T, the rapper, and his wife was named Coco, and they used to have a talk show. That's all we ever saw. Nowadays, when you search for CoCoTALK, 9 out of 10 of the results are going to come up are going to be our show. But every now and then, I like to just test the waters on search engine optimizations, keywords, stuff like that. So I came across this show here, and I'm not familiar with them yet, but I'm interested in these guys now. So this is the Amigos Retro Gaming. And this is two guys that apparently do a show. And this show was actually called CoCoTALK because the guy grabbed himself a Coco 2 and was talking about it. And so I actually wrote them a little note and I said, hey man, I'd love to have you guys come on the show sometime if you want to talk about your Coco experiences and hear from people of the community. So maybe we'll get these guys on. Now, I've already been butt hurt by YouTube in the past for playing videos and having copyright bots get me. So I'm pretty sure these guys are not owned by an evil corporation, and I probably wouldn't get a copyright flag, but just to be safe, I'm not going to play it. But needless to say, they have a Coco 2. The only cartridge that came with it was Color File. So he bought this. He bought this at like a pawn shop type place, and it was sitting in the corner. And he got the game. He got this with the cartridge Color File. And I think that's kind of funny for your only one cartridge you own to be Color File. It's almost like it's not a game. No. So yeah, there'll be a link to this video here. So you guys might want to check out these guys. I always love to see when somebody else discovers the Coco, just to hear someone else's take on a machine, especially if they're not an expert in it, but just to hear an outside perspective on the machine. And they were actually very complimentary to, because what the guy was saying was the reason why he went looking for the Coco is I guess they had done a special on all the different versions of the Popeye game across different platforms. And they spoke very highly of Sailor Man for the Coco. And he was really commenting on all the funny things about how it was a clone and how it was called not spinach, but it was called collard greens, but there was an S on the can of collard greens and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, check out the Amigos, just, talking about a Coco 2 for a little bit there. And so there will be a link to that in this, and maybe we can get some of these guys on a future CoCoTALK show.
Hey, do you remember the guys you talked about? Was it last week? The 8-bit guy.
Yeah,
I watched him do a Retrobyte show about different ways to retrowrite, and one of them was to use he had a little machine that made gas come out. What do they call it?
I call that my butt.
No, ozone.
Ozone. Okay.
He put a piece in a bag, and he let the ozone go in there, and then he sealed it, or he let it run. I forget, but he put it in the sun, and that worked as well as retrowrite. But what's neat about that is you didn't need to immerse everything in liquid.
Okay.
Whatever the sun did, it would make it nice and bright. It was a great show. If you get a chance, check it out.
Okay. Now, last but not least that I have here, unless you guys have something else to talk about, but this was brought up in Discord as something to mention, but the CMOC compiler has been updated recently. And one of the things that's been recently added to it is a library that would let you generate music in the CMOC by replicating the basic play command. So if you're used to the note syntax of the basic play command, which was literally, writing out the letters A, B, C, D, E, F, G, and just changing your octaves and tempos and stuff. So they've added a library for that. So when you look through here, and if you look at some of the libraries that they have here, there's actually a decent amount of content. So if you're familiar with C, now we've been talking about this recently. We'd like to see more software. We want to see more programs for the Coco, and we're working here in our little circles to promote assembly development. But if you know the C language, or you're interested in writing something that's better than BASIC and not quite assembly, C might be an option. It's going to still run faster than BASIC. It will still compile down. But there's a lot of different libraries here. So there's a graphics library that offers BASIC's line, draw, and paint commands. I believe the B sound might be the one that adds the BASIC's play command. There's a card game derived from Crazy H. So there's actually a sample program here that you could load up. So there's a couple of different card games where you could load up a playable game in the CMOC compiler, look at the source code, and maybe learn how to, here's Michael Furman's DW term, the drive wire term. There's some stuff from Jamie Cho. His name comes up a bit. If you guys recall from Coco Fest, Jamie Cho gave that presentation on Dino Sprite, right? Mm-hmm. And so there's links to some different things. There's a high-res text routine on here. And so again, I don't understand C yet, but I have a book on it, and my goal is first to learn assembly before I learn anything else. But anyways, there's a link to this too in the description of this. So CMOC, if you're looking to write software for the Coco and you know C, or maybe C might be a low learning curve to learn as far as the language goes, it might be a little bit easier to learn than assembly. This might be another option for you as far as having a development environment that can create software for the Coco that will run faster than just normal RS basic runs. So how was that for news, guys? Is that good for 1 week?
That's good.
All right, what is James Jones says, do note that CMOC is C-like. It doesn't meet the C standards as far as what ANSI C are saying. Again, that's now you're getting into above my pay grade. I don't know anything about C right now. I know it's a well-known popular language, and I know there's a million versions of it. But yeah, it has always been said that CMOC is a C-like compiler where it's not fully C, but it's good enough, and it's on the Coco. And it's a cross compiler thing, so you run it on a modern system, whole 9 yards.
Yeah.
So there we have it. What are we missing here now in the live chat? Nick Marotta says so we're talking about the 8-bit guy. So the 8-bit guy is going to be doing some Coco stuff. I guess he got a Coco donated to him, and so he'll be now doing some unboxings or talking about the Coco. And so yeah, we've mentioned that it would be really good, because the 8-bit guy has got such a big audience, that if his audience, who maybe is not as familiar with the Coco, starts to become familiar with the Coco, that could raise awareness and maybe get some more people to maybe want to buy some Cocos on eBay, maybe join the Facebook group, maybe watch our show or listen to the Coco crew, whatever the case may be. So anything we can do to further expand the hobby, expand the realm of influence, and get more people in the family, that's a good thing, right?
Yeah. Of course, right now the ratings are dropping because you got my big head in the middle of the screen instead of the other guys.
Well, why is that not? It should only be going on who's talking. But all right, So what have I not talked about this week? Now that we're at the 3-hour mark, has anybody got anything else they want to add to the show?
Out of Ron's garage, I hooked up my 4P to the internet with my handy dandy. What do you call it here? USB.
USB to serial adapter?
24, 25 pin. And it came up, and I went on Neil Blanchard's site, and I was able to see stuff and communicate on there.
And the Model 4P is the TRS-80 portable. It's kind of the luggable one, right?
It's a Z80 or Z, as somebody says.
Z80? Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, that's cool.
Anyone?
Z is a European pronunciation of the letter Z.
Oh.
They won't. We say Z, they say Z.
Because Z is so much closer to another letter. Do you want to make sure it's a Z?
Just the way they do it.
Oh.
Yeah. By the way, that Model 4P, wasn't that about 40 or 50 pounds? When you say luggable, it's luggable by 2 people.
Well, yeah, it has a handle. It looks like a sewing machine, actually. It's about as heavy as a sewing machine, too.
Yeah. Yeah, that monitor, power supply, metal case to support it.
Hey, Nick Marotta's doing some punny stuff here in the live chat. He goes, ASCII stupid question, get stupid antsy. Good one, Nick. Chad is asking, have we ever had the 8-bit guy on the show? We have not. I have never asked him directly. I believe a few other people who have some type of contact or relationship with him, and I believe he's declined the author. I believe he's got his brand to be concerned with, and probably getting on any other show may or may not interfere with his brand, or maybe he's just too busy. I don't know.
We won't bring him down.
I'm very passive when it comes to letting people know they're welcome on the show. I basically have said so many times, I'm tired of saying it. Anybody's on, listen, we got David Ladd on here, right? So,
thanks a lot, Stevie.
So everybody is welcome to join the show. I mention that all the time. Some people do, some people don't. I should maybe try a little bit harder, but I got enough things to do. I would love to have more people on, and maybe some people need to be directly asked. I'm not sure. I personally, I don't know the 8-bit guy. From what I've heard, he's a really nice guy. He lets people come to his house, so I would imagine he wouldn't be rude if we asked him, but I would also...
Maybe we should all go to his house.
Yeah, we could do a CoCoTALK at his house, right?
Yeah.
So, but yeah, would it be nice to have him on? Obviously, it'd be nice to have him on. Would he be able to? Would he be willing to? Who the hell knows? But he's definitely welcome. There are a number of people I have asked directly, like those people in the YouTube video. I just responded to them saying, "Hey guys, I'd love to have you on the show." A lot of times, somebody will put something on Facebook, and I'll put a comment saying, "Hey, would you like to come on CoCoTALK?" But I'm not super aggressive about it, and some people maybe either just don't want to. And there were times where I get a little bit frustrated because I have posted in a few different groups saying, hey, I'd love to get people to come on the show and talk about this. I'll give you an example. What is that group called? All Things Tandy and Radio Shack, right? Where everybody's talking about their Radio Shack memories. On at least 2 different occasions, I have put out there as a post saying this would be a great topic for like a CoCoTALK show where we could just talk about Radio Shack. We don't have to talk about Coco's, but we could have a whole episode where everybody who has a Radio Shack memory, we could just talk about Radio Shack stuff. And 2 different times I posted a plea to get people to get some interest, and it doesn't happen. So I'm kind of on the mindset that if somebody wants to be on a show, they'll find a way to find out how to be on it. But again, I'm also asking for people to work those angles to help, generate interest to get people to join us, as well as to generate interest to get people to watch us.
I've done some of that.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. So,
and I think we should get Stuart Chaffee on.
That would be good.
Wouldn't that be cool?
Yeah. Well, if I can make it to Tandy Assembly, maybe we can talk to him.
Yeah.
Invite him on. Yeah, that would be great. So
start the show with him introducing our show in the format of Chronicles.
Yeah, that would be
cool.
awesome. That would be completely awesome. Yeah. All right.
Work on that.
So what else? Have we missed anything? Are we good? Grant Leedy's just joined us. It's Greg. What's going on, Greg?
Hello, everybody. I just got home from work.
I thought today is the day you were going to host, so I didn't have to rage quit.
No. We decided to let you rage quit. But apparently you survived because you're still here.
Yeah, you wanted me to rage quit. Is that what happened?
Exactly.
You set me up for failure. I'm sorry to disappoint you. So,
well, the ratings are doing well, so you didn't disappoint everybody.
Yeah. Have you shown us how many people have hit? In that little chart you put up usually.
Oh yeah, I looked at it. We're just shy of 13,000 downloads on the audio podcast. And again, this is kind of my. I don't promote the podcast version of the show at all. Like I don't post it in groups because I only post when we go live. I'll post an invitation to join the live show. When the podcast replay comes, I don't post that. Again, I'm kind of like I don't want to be too spammy, and I don't want to offend people's sensibilities, and I don't want it to always come from me. So the only time a posting goes out that the audio or video podcasts have dropped is if you follow the page. So if you follow the CoCoTALK page or you follow my OG Stevie Stroh page, those get posted there automatically, but I don't post those in groups because I feel like it's semi-redundant, and I don't want to have like 3 posts a week from me in the Facebook group because then it just becomes like, well, who is this guy? Why is he always, look at me? It's just kind of not my style. But I would ask anybody else, feel free to share. Feel free to share if you want to share, but I don't want to be the main sharer.
So you need soldiers.
Yeah, street team. We need a promotional street team. What else? Closing thoughts, parting thoughts. Anybody? What is Chad Cunningham saying here? Terry Hatcher on Radio Shack. Oh yeah. It's a good memory. It was the chess club, the computer club, and the math club. Yeah, remember Terry Hatcher? That's the chick that was on Lois and Clark, right? She's married to that, what's his face, football player guy. They both did commercials, I think, for Radio Shack. So, anywho, are we good? Any closing thoughts, or should we start getting ready to roll the credits?
Did you mention Tandy Assembly?
Oh, there you go. See, I knew there was a reason why I pay you, Greg.
I mentioned.
So, we did. So Tandy Assembly, right? So we're going to move over to events here real quick. Thank you, Greg Leedy. All right, so Tandy Assembly, as you know, it's still scheduled for November 10th and 11th in Springfield, Ohio. The website is tandyassembly.com. Registration is $10 per attendee. 12 and under are free. All proceeds go to the cost of running the event. And call for speakers. They're still looking for speakers. Right now, as we know, as we've mentioned, our headline speaker, our keynote speaker is Stuart Chaffee of the Computer Chronicles. And right now, as of exhibitors, we've got Ian Maverick, we've got Peter Satinsky, Brendan Donaghy's going to be here, Coco Man will be here, our very own Coco Man, Boyson Tech will be there, Randy Kindig, Eric Canales, potential future president of the Glenside Color Computer Club. Henry Reitveld's going to be showing off a Tandy Vision, which is Tandy's clone of the Intellivision. Ken Edwards is going to be showing off Tandys and TRS-80s. Retro Innovations. Jim Brain will be there. Cloud9. All kinds of people will be exhibiting there. This exhibitor schedule has definitely beefed up there a little bit. Still have some to be determined speakers and presentations, but looking good. Courtyard Marriott, Springfield, and downtown Springfield, Ohio. I like it. Good call there, Greg.
And did you remind everybody to vote for the officers? For
Oh, that's right. So the Glenside newsletter has information on where to go or how to do it, right?
Yeah, it's CoCoList.com.
Coco List.
Excuse me. I'm sorry, my bad. TandyList.com.
TandyList.com. Let's take a look at that. Is that the voting site?
Correct. And you have to log in with the email address you provided at the Coco Fest last year with the password.
Ah, look at this. So TandyList.com. And if you forgot your password, is there a way to reset your password?
That's above my pay grade.
Oh, there you go.
Yes,
All
you
right.
can. It's just there. Look on the page.
Okay, so for example, click here to reset your password. Okay, so TandyList.com is where you can vote for your officers for the Glenside Color Computer Club. This is important stuff. And there's a vote button right there. All right, so there you have it, TandyList.com. Thank you, Greg. You just come in at the last minute and just drop all kinds of useful information on us. And that's what we love about you.
Vote
yes,
early, vote
and
often.
I'm a big advocate. If you don't vote, you can't bitch.
Hey, watch your language.
And that is true of so many things in life.
So if you're a member of Coco Fest, that means you're a member of Glenside Computer Club?
That's correct.
I didn't realize that. Cool.
Yeah, it seems like when you attend or you get a table, you also get a membership.
There you go. So if you've attended Coco Fest, you are automatically a member. Not only you're a member, but you're also a client or something like that. And that was that Cy Sperling from the Hair Club for Men. Not only am I the president, but I'm also a client, right? So, cool. All right, Grant. Well, thank you for that. What else have I missed? What else have I forgotten that Greg needs to remind me of? Anything else?
It was Coco Man's birthday this week.
Coco Man's birthday this week. Jason Reichert.
Yay.
Coco Man. See, Grant, you're just full of it.
Full of what? Or do I even want to know?
Grant's definitely full of it.
Ladies and gentlemen, Grant Lady is full of it. All right. So on that note, we're going to begin phase one of the sign out here. If there is to be an After Dark, that's to be determined. But by show of hands, anybody want to reunite later on this evening? Anyone available? Ron's saying maybe.
Possibly. It just depends.
Much like the undergarment. All right. So
what undergarments?
Adult diapers.
God.
All right. So David doesn't wear undergarments is what he's saying. What
do we need to end the show?
Stevie, that's going too far.
Well, why else would you be asking?
Too long.
Ladies and gentlemen, David Ladd's going full commando. All right, so on that note, we're going to
roll the credits.
Press the button, Frank. We'll be back in just a minute. This concludes another episode of CoCoTALK, the world's leading live talk show featuring the Tandy Color Computer. For all things CoCoTALK, visit us on the web at CoCoTalk.live. We'd love to hear from you. Send feedback, suggestions, even segments via email to CoCoTalk@CoCoTalk.live. If you love the color computer like we do, then visit IMACoconut.com for all your color computer links needs. Consider supporting the show with a purchase of merchandise from our retro swag shop at 8bit256.com. If you'd like to become a patron of the show, visit the Patreon link on our site at CoCoTalk.live. CoCoTalk would not exist without the community and its cast and crew. Thanks go to Curtis Boyle, David Ladd, Mark Overholzer, Grant Leedy, Bruce Moore, Nick Marentes, Ron Delvaux, Rick Adams, Jason Reichert, Richard Lorbieski, Jim Brain, Karen Anscombe, Simon Jonason, Wayne Campbell, Steve Batson, Brian Joyce, John Strong, and Barry Nelson. Special thanks to Steve Bjork for production suggestions and Brian Joyce for our best of episodes and bonus content. Please help support the CoCo community by visiting some of its contributors. The CoCo Crew podcast at CoCoCrew.org. Glenside Color Computer Club, host of CoCo Fest at GlensideCCC.com. Jim Brain and Retro Innovations at Go4Retro.com. Tandy Assembly at TandyAssembly.com.
Oh my God, is this about
Boyson
over?
Technologies at BoysonTech.com. Get your own switcheroo at cocoman.biz and Cloud9 Technologies at cloud9tech.com. CoCoTalk is hosted by Steve Strobridge, co-hosts, technical directors, segment hosts, and producers Curtis Boyle, David Ladd, Grant Leedy, Mark Overholzer, Ron Delvaux, and Jason Reichert. Production motivation, Steve Bjork. The CoCoTalk theme song is copyright 2008 by D. Bruce Moore and Greg Schalar. Mixed, mastered, and produced by D. Bruce Moore. CoCo forever, people. And let's not forget a very special thank you to Roger Taylor for getting us on the CoCo TV channel on Roku. Yeah, this one doesn't play long enough anymore to get to the high note. It used to be a longer one, and we got to that high note out there. All right, so we've learned that David Ladd does not wear underpants. Anything else that we need to leave people with to give them really bad pictures in their mind that they'll never shake out of there?
Stevie!
If we're off the air, we could say more.
Oh, jeez.
This is definitely almost a CoCo After Dark.
Well, David is dog sitting. He does let the dogs hump his legs.
Oh, for the love of Pete.
Oh, crap! That's just wrong.
Press the button, Frank.
Press the button, Frank. It's definitely become train wreck after dark. All right, so we're going to end the train wreck, and possibly we'll be back later on tonight. So thank you all for being here. 3.5 hours left. We'll play the bonus clip here for a little bit more David Ladd for us, and then we'll get the hell out of here.
Hi, this is Antonio Jimenez, author of such projects such as the Stevie Throw Devil and the SD Pack, and you are watching CoCoTALK. 3, 2, go.
I'm behind you making faces.
Okay.
Do you have a script?
You're rolling, Curtis. You say whatever the hell you want to say.
Well, give me some kind of guideline.
Hi, this is Curtis Boyle.
Hey, this is Eric, and you're listening to CoCoTALK.
All right, we're rolling. You say whatever you want to say, David.
I can't even think of it.
Nation, world's leading weekly Tandy Computer. Something like that.
Hi, I'm Tim. Playing Daggerith like that idiot from the book. You're watching CoCoTALK.
Thank you, David Ladd. Now get back up there for 1 second.
Oh, jeez.
Come on.
What?
Let's get some drive wire, TTL,
No,
ESP.
no, we don't need any drive wire or TTL.
Hi, it's Curtis Boyle, part of the CoCoTALK crew of people.
Hi, we're on Delbo Timberman. To experience CoCo Fest, you must come. Do you need this? I brought the only working MC10. I could not get. Could not get.
Couldn't get
autograph. By certain someone you know. Oh well.
The world's leading weekly CoCoTALK show. Yeah, something like that.
Hi, this is Rick Adams, and I'm the author of Temple of Brahm, Shanghai, and now Bomb Threat, and you're listening to Steve Bjork on CoCoTALK.
8-slot MPI, floppy drive, Coco SDC, Sound Speech Pack, Orchestra 90, RS-232 pack, Modem pack, Super IDE. You start adding all those together if you want them all usable at the same time. Well, guess what? You just went over the 4-slot MPI.
Lord
Really?
have mercy.
Wow.
Lord have mercy. Whatever you do, do not go over the 4-slot MPI limit. That's bad. It's like crossing the streams.
I like my slots.
When was your birthday, Jason?
Oh, that was yesterday.
Yesterday. So what are you, 22 now?
If you choose to believe that. Still younger than all you old farts.
There you go. you got that going for you. All right. Well, we're going to press the button now, Frank. In the live chat, we've had lots of people in the live chat today. We will acknowledge at least 2 of them. I believe one of them's name was Nick Marotta.
Nick.
We also had Chad Edward Cunningham in the live chat, Salvador Garcia, Al Hartman, Nick Marotta. The Coco Man was in the live chat. D. Bruce Moore was in the live chat. So was Paul Fiscarelli, Salvador Garcia of the Glenside Color Computer Club. Pineapple was here. Rob Inman was here. Al Hartman. Who else was D. Bruce Moore? I mentioned that. Salvador, Al Hartman, Chad, Paul Fiscarelli, Rob Inman, Al Hartman. A lot of repetitive names here. Tim Franklin was in the live chat. James Jones was in the live chat earlier. Al Hartman. Did I mention Nick Marotta? Rob
You might
Inman.
have said Al Hartman. We're not
Might have said Al Hartman. James Jones, Nick Marotta. A lot of Nick Marotta comments in here. Chris Peterson was here. And who else was here? Coco Man was in the live chat. Lots of people in the live chat. Tom C. from Jersey was in the live chat. Chad, a lot of Chad here today from Australia. And it's early for you Australians. So that's good. And that's it. All right, guys. So Al Hartman says we said Nick Marotta at least 5 times now. Okay, now 6.
Nick Marotta?
There we go. All right, so we are now going to press the button. Say goodbye, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Goodbye, everyone.
I'm going to leave you with this. David Ladd does not wear underpants. All right, let that. Okay. Take care and goodbye, everybody.